She was nobody. A ghost moving between tables, cleaning up the crumbs of the wealthy. Until the night a man who controlled half the city walked into that restaurant and did something no one else had ever done. He actually saw her. What Elena didn't know was that he'd been watching her for months. What she couldn't predict was that one conversation in Italian would pull her into a world where power, danger, and impossible choices would become her new reality. This is the story of how an invisible waitress became the one person a ruthless man couldn't control. Stay with me until the end, hit that like button, and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far Elena's story travels. The dinner rush at Aurelio's started the same way it always did, with chaos barely contained beneath a veneer of white tablecloths and crystal glasses. Elena Vance moved through the dining room like water, fluid and forgettable. Plate after plate balanced on her forearm, each step measured to avoid the kitchen door swinging open, the busboy cutting across her path, the manager's eyes tracking every server for the slightest mistake. She'd perfected the art of being present without being seen, a skill she'd learned long before she started working here. The restaurant itself was a monument to excess. Marble floors that cost more than most people's cars. Chandeliers imported from somewhere in Europe that Elena couldn't pronounce. The kind of place where appetizers started at $40, and the wine list required a sommelier to navigate. The clientele matched the decor. Wealthy, entitled, and utterly indifferent to the people serving them. Elena had been working at Aurelio's for 2 years, 7 days a week when she could get the shifts. The money was decent by service industry standards, which meant it was barely enough to keep her head above water. After rent, utilities, her mother's medications, and the medical bills that kept piling up like snow in a Chicago winter, she had maybe $50 left each month, sometimes less. Tonight, she was running on 4 hours of sleep and a protein bar she'd eaten standing over the sink that morning. Her feet ached in the cheap non-slip shoes that were supposed to last 6 months, but would need replacing in 3. The smile she wore for customers had been practiced so many times, it no longer required thought, muscles remembering the movement, even when her brain was too tired to care. "Excuse me." A woman at table 7 snapped her fingers, not bothering to look up from her phone. "This water has ice in it. I specifically said, no ice." Elena materialized at the table's edge, still smiling. "Of course. I'll bring you a fresh glass right away." She'd said no such thing, but arguing with customers was a luxury reserved for people who could afford to lose their jobs. Elena couldn't. Not with her mother's next round of treatments scheduled for next week. Not with the eviction notice she'd received yesterday, giving her 14 days to come up with 3 months' back rent. The kitchen was a wall of heat and noise. Chef Andre was screaming at someone about plating temperatures. The dishwasher had backed up again, flooding the floor with greasy water that made every step treacherous. Elena grabbed a fresh glass, filled it with room temperature water, and was back on the floor in 45 seconds. "Here you are." She set the glass down with the same practiced smile. The woman didn't acknowledge her. Elena had already ceased to exist. That was fine. Existing drew attention, and attention led to questions Elena had no interest in answering. Questions about the dark circles under her eyes that concealer could no longer hide. About why someone with her education, 2 years of college before her mother got sick, was waiting tables. About the slight tremor in her hands that appeared whenever she stood still too long, a combination of exhaustion and the anxiety that had become her constant companion. She moved to table 9, cleared plates, refilled wine glasses, laughed at a joke she didn't hear. The performance was automatic now. Smile, nod, make them feel important, disappear. Repeat until the shift ended and she could collapse into the CTA seat for the 40-minute ride back to her studio apartment in a building that smelled like mildew and broken promises. "Elena." Marcus, the floor manager, caught her arm as she passed. "Table 12 needs attention. VIP reservation." She glanced at the corner booth, currently empty. "What time?" "Now. He's always early." "He." But Marcus had already moved on, clipboard in hand, orchestrating the controlled chaos with the intensity of a general preparing for battle. Elena checked table 12. Fresh flowers. Not the standard arrangements they used for regular tables. Orchids. Expensive ones. The wine glasses were crystal, not the usual high-quality glass. Even the tablecloth looked different, some kind of imported linen that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe. VIP treatment at Aurelio's usually meant local politicians or minor celebrities, occasionally a professional athlete, people with money and the need to be recognized for having it. Elena had served dozens of them. They tipped well if you laughed at their jokes, and poorly if you didn't. She was adjusting the silverware when the room changed. It was subtle at first. A shift in the ambient noise level. Conversations didn't stop exactly, but they quieted. Heads turned toward the entrance with the kind of casual interest that wasn't casual at all. Even Marcus straightened his tie, his usual expression of controlled stress replaced by something that might have been nervousness. Elena looked up. The man in the doorway didn't need to announce himself. His presence did it for him. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair styled in a way that looked effortless but probably required expensive maintenance. The suit he wore was charcoal gray, tailored so perfectly it might have been sewn directly onto his body. No tie. White shirt open at the collar, simple, clean, and probably worth more than 3 months of Elena's rent. But it wasn't the clothes that made the room take notice. It was something else. The way he moved, maybe. Unhurried but purposeful, like someone who'd never had to wait for anything in his life. Or the way his eyes scanned the dining room with the kind of assessment that made you feel measured and cataloged in the space of a glance. Marcus intercepted him before he'd taken 5 steps. The manager's usual authoritative demeanor had been replaced by something closer to deference. They spoke briefly, Marcus gesturing toward table 12, the man nodding once, a short, economical movement that conveyed agreement without enthusiasm. He moved through the restaurant like he owned it. Maybe he did. Elena didn't know. She didn't follow Chicago's power players or society pages. Her world had shrunk to the size of her immediate survival, leaving no room for curiosity about people she'd never meet, except apparently she was about to meet this one. The man settled into the booth, his back to the wall. She noticed that detail, though she couldn't have said why it seemed important. His attention moved to his phone, fingers moving across the screen with the fluid efficiency of someone handling urgent business. Elena gave him 30 seconds, the standard grace period for VIP tables. Then she approached with a water glass and the wine list. "Good evening. My name is Elena. I'll be taking care of you tonight. Can I start you with Pellegrino?" His voice was low, accented. Not heavy, but present. Italian, she thought, though she'd only heard it in movies. No ice. He didn't look up from his phone. Elena nodded, swallowed the rest of her prepared greeting, and headed back toward the bar. Professional, efficient, invisible. Just how she preferred it. The sparkling water came in a green glass bottle, condensation already forming on the surface. She poured it into a glass, set both on her tray, and returned to table 12. "Your Pellegrino." She set the glass down, positioned the bottle within easy reach. "Grazie." The word stopped her. Not because of the Italian. Plenty of customers dropped foreign phrases to show off their European vacations. But the way he said it. Casual. Natural. Like it was his first language, not a performance. She glanced at him. He was looking at her now, phone face down on the table. His eyes were dark, almost black in the restaurant's low lighting. The kind of gaze that made you feel like you were the only person in the room, even though you knew you weren't. "Prego," she replied without thinking. Something shifted in his expression. Not quite a smile, but close. Interest, maybe. Or surprise. "Tu parli italiano?" The question came naturally, but Elena felt the ground shift beneath her feet. She didn't advertise the fact that she spoke Italian. It was a remnant from another life, before her mother got sick, before college became impossible, before survival became her only goal. Her grandmother had been from Naples, had insisted Elena learn the language properly, not the bastardized American version. "Un po'," she said carefully. "A little." "You're being modest." He leaned back in the booth, studying her with an intensity that should have made her uncomfortable. "Your pronunciation is too good for a little." This was dangerous territory. Personal questions led to personal conversations, which led to complications Elena couldn't afford. She needed to redirect, get back to the script, maintain the professional distance that kept her safe. "Have you had a chance to look at the menu?" She kept her voice polite, neutral. "Chef Andre has a special tonight, pan-seared branzino with—" "Sit down." 2 words, not a request. Elena blinked. "I'm sorry?" "Sit." He gestured to the opposite side of the booth. "Please." Every instinct screamed at her to refuse. Servers didn't sit with customers. Marcus would have a stroke if he saw her. This violated every professional boundary, every rule that kept the invisible line between staff and clientele intact. But something about the way he said it, please, added almost as an afterthought, like he was remembering his manners, made her hesitate. I can't, she said. I'm working. I'm aware. He glanced toward the bar where Marcus was pretending not to watch them. Your manager won't object. You don't know that. Actually, I do. The confidence in his voice wasn't arrogance. It was certainty, the kind that came from being proven right so many times that doubt became irrelevant. Elena's fingers tightened on her serving tray. Sir, I appreciate the invitation, but Marco. He extended his hand across the table. Marco De Luca. She didn't shake it. Touching customers was another line she didn't cross. Too personal, too risky. He withdrew his hand without apparent offense, though she noticed he didn't stop looking at her. And you're Elena Vance, 26 years old. You've been working here for 2 years. Before that, you were studying literature at Northwestern before you had to drop out. Your mother, Catherine, is receiving treatment for stage 3 ovarian cancer at Northwestern Memorial. You live alone in a studio apartment on the south side. You take the red line to work because your car died 8 months ago and you can't afford to replace it. The tray slipped from her fingers. Elena caught it before it hit the floor, but the clatter drew attention from nearby tables. Her heart was hammering so hard she could feel it in her throat. How do you? She couldn't finish the question. The words tangled on her tongue. Sit down, Elena. His voice was softer now, not threatening, almost gentle. You're making a scene, and I don't think you want that. He was right. She didn't. But she also didn't want to sit across from a stranger who somehow knew the intimate details of her life. Every survival instinct she'd honed over the past 2 years was screaming at her to run, to get Marcus, to call security, to do something other than stand here frozen like prey caught in headlights. But she didn't run. Maybe because her legs wouldn't move. Maybe because some part of her, the part that hadn't completely given up on curiosity despite everything, needed to understand how this man knew things he shouldn't know. She sat. Marco picked up his water glass, took a sip, set it down with precise care. You're afraid. Of course I'm afraid. You just recited my life story like you memorized my driver's license. I did more than that. He paused. I know you're 3 months behind on rent. I know the electric company sent you a final notice last week. I know your mother's insurance won't cover the full cost of her next treatment, and you've been looking into clinical trials because it's the only option you can afford. Elena's hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against the table to make it stop. Why? Why do you know any of this? Because I make it my business to know things. He tilted his head slightly, studying her, especially when something interests me. I don't understand. I know. The admission should have been reassuring. Instead, it made everything worse. Elena glanced toward the kitchen, calculating escape routes. The back door was through the prep area, past the walk-in coolers. She could be out in 30 seconds if she moved fast. Don't! Marco's voice stopped her. Please, I'm not here to hurt you. Then what do you want? To talk. We're talking. Are we? He leaned forward, elbows on the table. You're thinking about running, calculating which exit is fastest, wondering if I'll follow you. The answer is no, by the way. If you want to leave, leave. I won't stop you. The fact that he'd read her so easily was almost as unsettling as everything else. Elena stayed in her seat, though she couldn't have explained why. Maybe because he was right. He could have stopped her already if that was his intention. Or maybe because beneath the fear, beneath the shock, there was something else. A flicker of something she hadn't felt in years. Curiosity. Who are you? She asked. I told you, Marco De Luca. That's a name, not an answer. A smile touched his lips. Brief, there, and gone. Fair enough. I'm someone with resources, connections, the ability to solve problems. What kind of problems? The kind you're drowning in. Elena stood up so fast the booth seat scraped against the floor. I'm not interested. You haven't heard what I'm offering. I don't need to. Whatever this is, she gestured between them. I'm not interested. Find someone else to play games with. She turned to leave. His voice followed her. Your mother's treatment, the one that costs $40,000 that insurance won't cover. I can make that happen. Elena stopped walking. The rent you owe, the utilities, the medical bills, all of it. I can make it disappear. She turned around slowly. Marco hadn't moved from the booth. He looked completely relaxed, like he was discussing the weather instead of offering to solve every financial crisis that was slowly killing her. Why? The word came out raw, stripped of the professional veneer she'd been hiding behind. Why would you do that? Because I can, and because I want to. Nobody does something for nothing. You're right. He picked up the wine list, glanced at it briefly, set it aside. I'm offering you an opportunity, a position, working for me. Doing what? That depends on what you're good at. But first, he pulled out his phone, tapped the screen a few times, then turned it toward her. This is your mother's treatment plan. Stage 3 ovarian cancer, responding poorly to the current chemotherapy protocol. Her oncologist recommended switching to a different drug combination, but it's not covered by her insurance. Experimental, they said, too expensive to justify. Elena stared at the screen. It was her mother's medical file, complete, detailed. Information that should have been private, protected, impossible for a stranger to access. How did you get that? I told you, I have resources. He pulled the phone back, closed the app. The treatment your mother needs? I know the pharmaceutical company that makes it. I know the head of oncology at Northwestern Memorial. I can have her started on the new protocol by Monday. Full coverage. No cost to you. Elena's knees felt weak. She sat down again, not because she wanted to, but because standing required more strength than she had left. What do you want from me? Time. Attention. Your presence in certain situations where having someone intelligent and observant would be useful. You want me to be your escort? No. The word was sharp, almost offended. I want you to be exactly who you are. Smart, educated, someone who knows how to read a room. You've been doing it here for 2 years, watching people, understanding dynamics, staying invisible when you need to be. Those are valuable skills. For what? Business. What kind of business? Marco was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice carried a weight it hadn't before. The kind that requires discretion, trust, the ability to keep certain things private. You're talking about crime. I'm talking about business that operates in gray areas. Import, export, consulting, various enterprises that benefit from someone with your particular talents. Elena laughed. It came out bitter, edged with something close to hysteria. You don't know anything about my talents. I know you speak 3 languages fluently, Italian, Spanish, and English. I know you have a photographic memory, which is why you were on scholarship at Northwestern before you had to leave. I know you can read people well enough to survive 2 years in service industry hell without getting fired or breaking down. And I know you're desperate enough that you're still sitting here instead of running. Every word hit like a physical blow, not because it was cruel, but because it was true. I need to think about it, Elena said. Of course. Marco reached into his jacket, pulled out a business card, plain white, embossed with a phone number, nothing else. Call me when you decide. And if I don't, then you don't. The offer expires in 48 hours. After that, I'll solve your problems anyway. Consider it a gift for an interesting conversation, but the position will no longer be available. Elena took the card. Her fingers were still trembling. Why me? Because you're invisible. He said it like it was a compliment. People like the ones in this restaurant. They look right through you, see the uniform, not the person. But I see you, Elena. I have for months. And I think you're wasting your potential serving water to people who don't deserve your attention. Months. He'd been watching her for months. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, it settled over her like a cold blanket, smothering the fear beneath something else. Calculation. If he'd wanted to hurt her, he'd had plenty of opportunities. This was something different. Something that might be worse, or might be the lifeline she'd been drowning without. I need to get back to work, she said. Of course. Marco picked up the menu. I'll have the branzino and a bottle of the Gavi di Gavi. Bring 2 glasses. I can't drink on shift. You're not drinking. You're keeping a customer company. There's a difference. Elena stood, tucked the business card into her apron pocket. The weight of it felt disproportionate to its size. I'll put your order in. She walked back to the kitchen on autopilot, gave the ticket to the expo, returned to the bar for the wine, opened the bottle with hands that had finally stopped shaking through sheer force of will. When she brought the wine back, Marco was on his phone again. She poured 2 glasses without being asked, set one in front of him, kept the other for herself. "Salute," he said, raising his glass. Elena didn't respond. She sipped the wine. It was excellent, crisp and clean with notes of citrus, and tried to organize her thoughts into something resembling coherence. "Tell me about your mother," Marco said. "Why?" "Because she's important to you, and I'm curious." Elena took another sip of wine, buying time, trying to decide how much truth to offer a stranger who already knew too much. "She raised me alone. My father left when I was 3. She worked 2 jobs to keep us fed, made sure I got into good schools, pushed me to apply for scholarships. Everything I am, I owe to her. And now she's dying. The bluntness of it should have hurt. Instead, it was almost a relief. No platitudes, no false hope, just reality, spoken plainly. Yes, the experimental treatment has a 30% success rate, better than the current protocol, which has given her maybe 6 months. I know the statistics. Then you know it's worth trying." Elena set her glass down. "Is this the part where you tell me I have no choice? That I need to accept your offer because my mother's life depends on it?" "No." Marco's expression didn't change. "This is the part where I tell you the treatment is yours regardless of your decision. I meant what I said, 48 hours to decide about the position. But your mother's care? That starts Monday whether you call me or not." "Why?" "Because I can, and because watching you suffer serves no purpose." The words were matter of fact, delivered without sentiment or expectation of gratitude. Somehow, that made them hit harder than any emotional appeal could have. "I don't understand you," Elena said. "You're not supposed to. Not yet." The food arrived. Marco had ordered for both of them. She hadn't noticed when, but there were 2 plates of branzino, perfectly prepared, with roasted vegetables and a lemon butter sauce that smelled incredible. "Eat," he said. "You skipped lunch. Probably breakfast, too." Elena stared at the plate. "How do you... You're too thin. Your hands shake when you think no one's watching. And there's a protein bar wrapper in your apron pocket from this morning." She pulled out her phone, pretending to check messages, actually trying to steady herself. This man saw too much, knew too much, and somehow, impossibly, that was starting to feel less threatening and more like something she couldn't quite name. They ate in silence. Elena couldn't remember the last time food had tasted this good, or if she'd ever eaten anything this expensive. Probably not. Her version of fine dining was the Thai place near her apartment that gave her extra spring rolls because she always tipped in cash. "Tell me about the books you read," Marco said. The shift in topic threw her. "What?" "Northwestern, literature degree. You must have favorites." "Why does that matter?" "Humor me." Elena cut into her fish, buying time. "Fitzgerald, Hemingway, the usual American classics, but I always preferred the Russians. Dostoevsky, Tolstoy. Stories about people trapped in circumstances they can't control, trying to find meaning anyway. Crime and Punishment?" "Guilty." She almost smiled. "Also Anna Karenina, the brothers Karamazov. I wrote my final paper on moral relativism in Dostoevsky's work before I had to drop out." "Appropriate," Marco said. "What is?" "You, reading about moral relativism. Now, sitting across from someone offering you a morally complicated opportunity. Is that what this is?" "Yes." No hesitation, no attempt to soften it. "I'm not a good man, Elena. I don't pretend to be. The world I operate in doesn't reward goodness. It rewards strength, intelligence, and the ability to make hard choices. But I'm honest about what I am. That's more than most people can say." Elena set down her fork. The food sat heavy in her stomach, though she'd barely eaten half. "You're trying to recruit me into something illegal. I'm trying to offer you a way out of poverty. What you do with that opportunity is up to you." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer I can give you right now. Some things you need to see to understand. And before you see them, I need to know you're committed to keeping them private. And if I'm not, Marco took a sip of wine, considering, then you walk away. I'll fulfill my promise regarding your mother's treatment. We'll never speak again. And you'll spend the rest of your life wondering what might have been different if you'd taken the risk. The weight of the choice settled over Elena like a physical thing. Stay in the life she knew, grinding poverty, endless anxiety, watching her mother die slowly, or step into the unknown with a man who saw through her invisibility and offered solutions she couldn't imagine achieving on her own. 48 hours, she said. 48 hours. Marco's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned slightly, then stood. I need to take this. Excuse me. He walked toward the restaurant's entrance, phone to his ear, speaking in rapid Italian that Elena couldn't quite hear. She sat alone at the table, surrounded by the remnants of a meal she hadn't paid for, drinking wine that cost more than her weekly grocery budget. Marcus appeared at her elbow, his expression carefully neutral. Everything all right? Fine. Mr. DeLuca is one of our most valued clients. We want to make sure he's receiving excellent service. Translation: don't screw this up. Elena nodded. He seemed satisfied. Good. Marcus glanced toward the entrance where Marco was still on the phone. He asked specifically for you to be his server tonight. Elena's stomach dropped. What? He called ahead, made the reservation, requested you by name. Marcus's expression softened slightly. Whatever you did to impress him, keep doing it. Men like that can make or break careers. He walked away before Elena could respond. She sat frozen, processing this new information. Marco hadn't stumbled into the restaurant and happened to notice her. He'd planned this, orchestrated it, chosen her deliberately for reasons she still didn't fully understand. The business card in her pocket felt like it was burning through the fabric. Marco returned 5 minutes later. I apologize. Business emergency. Is everything all right? It will be. He pulled out his wallet, expensive leather, probably Italian, and placed $500 bills on the table. For dinner and your time. That's too much. It's exactly right. He stood, buttoned his suit jacket with the kind of smooth efficiency that suggested custom tailoring. Think about my offer, Elena. Really think about it. Not just what you stand to lose, but what you might gain. And what's that? Freedom. The word hung in the air between them. Real freedom. Not the illusion of it that comes from barely surviving. The freedom to make choices because you want to, not because you're desperate. He left before she could respond. Elena watched him walk through the restaurant, noticed how people's eyes followed him, how conversations paused in his wake. Power, she realized. That's what they recognized. Not wealth. Chicago had plenty of wealthy people. But power. The kind that didn't need to announce itself. She cleared the table mechanically, pocketed the $500 with shaking hands. The money would cover her mother's medications for the next month, or part of the back rent, or groceries that weren't instant noodles and protein bars. The rest of her shift passed in a blur. She served other tables, smiled at other customers, went through the motions of her job while her mind spun in circles. By the time she clocked out at 11, she'd convinced herself a dozen times to throw away Marco's business card and another dozen times to call him immediately. She did neither. The Red Line at midnight was a different world, mostly empty except for night shift workers and people with nowhere else to go. Elena found a seat, pressed her forehead against the cool glass window, and watched the city slide past in streaks of light and shadow. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Your mother's treatment is scheduled for Monday, 9 a.m., Northwestern Memorial Oncology Department. Dr. Sarah Chen will be handling her case. All costs covered. M. Elena stared at the message until her vision blurred. He'd done it. Less than 3 hours after their conversation, he'd made it happen. The treatment that was supposed to be impossible, too experimental, too expensive, scheduled like it was nothing, like $40,000 was pocket change. She typed and deleted 3 different responses before settling on, "Thank you." The reply came immediately. You have 45 hours left to decide. Use them wisely. The apartment was dark and cold when she got home. Elena didn't bother turning on lights. She dropped her bag by the door, kicked off her shoes, and collapsed onto the couch that doubled as her bed. The business card was still in her pocket. She pulled it out, ran her fingers over the embossed numbers. A simple piece of cardstock that represented a choice she wasn't qualified to make. Her phone rang. Mom. Elena answered on the second ring. Hey, did I wake you? Her mother's voice sounded thin, tired. The cancer had stolen her strength slowly, bite by bite. No, just got home from work. How are you feeling? Like death warmed over, but I'm still here. A weak laugh. The nurse said my white blood cell count is up. That's good, right? It's good, Elena lied. She had no idea if it was good. Medical terminology had become a foreign language she was still learning to speak. How was work? Fine. Busy night. You sound tired. I'm always tired. I know, sweetheart. I'm sorry. The apology hit like a knife between ribs. Don't. Don't apologize for being sick. I'm apologizing for being a burden. You're not a burden. You're my mother. Silence on the other end. Then quietly. Did you get the eviction notice? Elena closed her eyes. How did you know about that? Mrs. Chen from 3B told me. She saw them posting it on your door. Of course she did. Privacy was a myth in buildings like theirs. It's fine. I'll figure it out. With what money, Elena? You can barely afford to feed yourself. I said I'll figure it out. Another silence. Longer this time. There are programs, assistance. You could apply for... I've applied for everything. We make just enough that we don't qualify for help, but not enough to actually survive. It's a perfect trap. Then maybe it's time to... Her mother's voice cracked. Maybe I should stop treatment. Let nature take its course. Use the money for... No. The word came out fierce, sharp. We're not having this conversation. Elena, no, I'm not letting you die because of money. I'll figure something out. How? The question hung in the air. Elena didn't have an answer. Or rather, she had one, and it was currently burning a hole in her pocket in the form of a business card. I have to go, she said. I'll call you tomorrow. I love you. Love you too. Elena hung up before her mother could hear her start to cry. She sat in the dark, phone clutched in one hand, business card in the other, and let the tears come. Silent, exhausted. The kind of crying that came from a place too deep for sound. 45 hours. She had 45 hours to decide whether to trust a stranger who knew too much, offered too much, and wanted something she didn't fully understand in return. 45 hours to choose between drowning slowly in poverty or diving into dark water with no idea how deep it went. 45 hours to decide who she wanted to be. Elena looked at the card again. The number seemed to glow in the darkness, though she knew that was impossible. Just her mind playing tricks, trying to make a choice, seem inevitable when it was anything but. She thought about Marco. The way he'd looked at her. Not through her like everyone else, but directly at her. Seeing things she'd spent years hiding. The calm certainty in his voice when he'd promised to solve problems that had seemed insurmountable. The admission that he wasn't a good man, delivered without shame or apology. Honesty, at least. That was something. Elena pulled out her laptop, ancient, slow, held together with hope and electrical tape, and did what she should have done hours ago. She searched for Marco De Luca. The results were strange. Mentions in society pages, photographs from charity events, quotes in business articles about import-export consulting. But nothing substantial. No real information about what he did, who he worked for, where his money came from. Just a carefully curated public persona that revealed nothing. She dug deeper. Cross-referenced names mentioned alongside his. Found patterns of association with people who appeared in news articles about organized crime, political corruption, federal investigations. Nothing concrete, nothing that proved anything, but the pattern was there if you knew how to look for it. Marco De Luca was exactly what he'd implied, someone who operated in gray areas. Legal enough to avoid prosecution, connected enough to avoid scrutiny. The kind of man who could make a $40,000 medical treatment appear with a single phone call. The kind of man who could make problems disappear, or create them. Elena closed the laptop. Her head hurt. Her body hurt. Everything hurt. She lay down on the couch, still fully dressed, and stared at the ceiling. Water stains formed shapes in the dim light from the street. She used to see pictures in them when she first moved in. Now they just looked like decay. Sleep didn't come easy. When it finally did, she dreamed of drowning, of water rising slowly, inevitably, while she stood frozen, unable to move or scream or save herself. And then a hand reaching down through the dark water. Strong, certain, offering rescue or damnation, impossible to tell which. She woke at 6 with the dream still clinging to her skin like oil. 40 hours left. Elena showered in water that never quite got hot enough, dressed in clothes that needed replacing, ate toast that needed butter she couldn't afford. Normal morning routine for an abnormal situation. Her phone buzzed with a message from work. Marcus, you're scheduled tonight, 5 close. VIP section again. Perfect. 8 hours of watching wealthy people waste money while she decided whether to accept help from someone who might be dangerous. The universe had a twisted sense of humor. She took the train to Northwestern Memorial. Visiting hours didn't start until 9, but the overnight nurses knew her. They let her sit with her mother in the quiet hour before the hospital came alive with doctors and tests and the machinery of modern medicine. Catherine Vance was asleep. Elena sat in the uncomfortable chair by the bed and watched her breathe. Each breath looked like work, like her body was forgetting how to perform basic functions. "Hey, Mom," Elena said quietly. "I don't know if you can hear me, but I need to tell you something." Her mother didn't stir. "I met someone, a man. He's offered to help us, to pay for your treatment, help with the bills, give us a way out of this mess." Elena's voice cracked. "But I don't know if I can trust him. I don't know what he really wants, and I'm scared." The machines beeped steadily. Heartbeat, blood pressure, oxygen levels. Numbers that meant life or death, reduced to digital displays. "He sees me, Mom, really sees me. Not just the uniform or the smile or the girl who serves water. He sees all the parts I try to hide. And that terrifies me because nobody's supposed to see those parts. They're mine. My survival tools, my armor." A nurse passed in the hallway. Elena waited until the footsteps faded. "I'm going to accept his offer. Not because I trust him, but because I'm out of options. And because even if it's dangerous, even if it's wrong, at least I'll be choosing something instead of just letting life happen to me." Her mother's hand twitched slightly. Elena took it, felt the bones too close to the surface, the skin too thin. "I love you," she whispered. "Whatever happens, whatever I become, remember that everything I do is to keep you alive." She stayed until visiting hours officially started and the morning shift nurses came to check vitals. Then she kissed her mother's forehead and left before the questions could start. Outside, Chicago was waking up. Traffic building. People rushing to jobs they hated or tolerated. The architecture of ordinary life, built on foundations of quiet desperation. Elena pulled out her phone, opened a new message, typed the number from the business card. "I accept. When do we start?" The response came before she'd walked 10 feet. "Tonight. I'll send a car to your apartment at 3 p.m. Pack for 3 days. Bring your passport." Elena stared at the message. 3 days. Passport. This wasn't a job interview. This was something else entirely. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere private, where we can talk without interruption." That's not an answer. "I know. Trust me anyway. Trust. The most dangerous word in the English language. Trust someone you just met. Trust someone who admitted he wasn't a good man. Trust your instincts when every instinct was screaming contradictory messages." Elena put her phone away without responding. She had 8 hours before the car arrived. 8 hours to second-guess herself. 8 hours to back out. She didn't think she would. The apartment looked smaller in daylight, shabbier, evidence of a life lived in survival mode, with no energy left for making things beautiful. Elena packed mechanically. Basics. Practical clothes. The passport she hadn't used since the study abroad semester she'd had to cancel when her mother got sick. At 2:45, she was ready. At 2:50, she was terrified. At 2:55, she was watching out the window for a car she couldn't imagine. At exactly 3 p.m., a black Mercedes pulled up to the curb. The driver got out, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a suit that screamed security rather than chauffeur. He looked up at her building, made eye contact through the window, and nodded once. Elena grabbed her bag, locked the door, walked down 3 flights of stairs that smelled like old cooking and broken dreams. The driver opened the back door without speaking. Elena slid in. The interior smelled like leather and money. Classical music played softly through speakers she couldn't see. Marco was already in the car. "You came," he said. "You knew I would." "I hoped." He gestured to the seat beside him. "We have a 90-minute drive. Get comfortable." The driver pulled away from the curb smoothly, navigating traffic with the efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. Elena watched her building disappear in the side mirror. Everything she owned was either in the bag at her feet or in that apartment, and somehow, impossibly, she was leaving it all behind for a man she'd known for less than 24 hours. "Where are we going?" she asked again. "A house I own, north of the city. Private, no interruptions." "Well, that's still not a real answer." Marco smiled. "You're going to fit in perfectly." The comment should have been reassuring. Instead, it made Elena's stomach tighten. Fit in where? Doing what? But she didn't ask. Not yet. Some questions had answers she wasn't ready to hear. They drove north in silence, city giving way to suburbs, suburbs giving way to open road. Elena watched the landscape change and tried not to think about what she'd just done. Tried not to wonder if she'd made the biggest mistake of her life, or the only choice that mattered. The silence stretched between them like a living thing. Elena kept her eyes on the window, tracking mile markers and exit signs, anything to avoid looking at Marco. He seemed content to let the quiet settle, his attention divided between his phone and the landscape rolling past. 30 minutes out of the city, Elena's phone buzzed. "Work." "Marcus." "Where are you?" "Your shift starts in 90 minutes. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. What could she possibly say? That she'd quit without notice to drive into the woods with a man who probably ran half of Chicago's underground economy? That sounded insane even in her own head. "Tell him you quit," Marco said without looking up from his phone. "I can't just quit. I need the reference, You don't need anything from that place anymore." He finally looked at her. "Send the message. I'll handle Marcus." "How?" "I own 20% of Aurelio's. Marcus works for me. He just doesn't know it yet." Elena's stomach dropped. "You own since when?" 4 months. Silent partner. The previous owner needed capital. I provided it." Marco's expression didn't change. "I told you. I make it my business to know things. That includes knowing where you work." The implications crashed over her like cold water. 4 months. He'd been planning this for 4 months. Buying into the restaurant, watching her, building some kind of strategy she couldn't begin to understand. "That's insane," she said. "That's thorough." He returned to his phone. "Send the message." Elena typed with shaking hands. "Family emergency. I won't be in tonight. Or any night. I'm sorry." She hit send before she could second-guess it. The finality of it settled over her chest like a weight. "Good," Marco said. "Now turn off your location services." "Why?" "Because I'd prefer people not know where we're going." Elena's mouth went dry. "That's not ominous at all. It's practical. I have enemies, people who would use anyone close to me as leverage. Until I know you're committed to this arrangement, I need to maintain certain precautions." "You mean you need to make sure I can't tell anyone where your secret murder cabin is located?" Marco actually smiled at that. "It's not a cabin, and I've never murdered anyone there. That's a very specific denial." "I thought you'd appreciate the precision." He pocketed his phone. "You're afraid again." "I'm always afraid. I've just gotten better at hiding it." "Don't. Not with me." His voice softened slightly. "Fear is honest. I can work with honest. It's the pretending I don't trust." Elena turned off her location services, watching the little blue dot on her Maps app disappear. Untethered. That's what she was now. Floating free from everything familiar, drifting into unknown territory with a man who spoke about murder like it was a business expense. The highway gave way to smaller roads, trees pressed closer, houses became sparse, then disappeared entirely. Elena tried to track the turns, memorize landmarks, anything that might help her find her way back if things went wrong. But after the 15th turn down increasingly narrow roads, she gave up. She was lost. Completely, utterly lost. "Tell me about your father," Marco said suddenly. The shift threw her. "What? You said he left when you were 3. I'm curious. Why?" Because the people who leave us shape us as much as the ones who stay, sometimes more. Elena was quiet for a long moment. I don't remember him. Just fragments, a voice, the smell of cigarette smoke. My mother doesn't talk about him. I stopped asking when I was 10. He's still alive, living in Phoenix, remarried, 2 kids. The information landed like a punch. Elena's breath caught. How do you... I told you, I'm thorough. That's not thorough, that's invasive. Yes. No apology, no justification, just agreement. Do you have any boundaries at all? Very few. And most of those are pragmatic rather than ethical. Marco glanced at her. Does it bother you, knowing he replaced you so easily? Elena's hands curled into fists. You don't get to ask me that. I just did. Then I don't have to answer. True? But you want to. I can see it. You've been carrying that question for 16 years, and nobody's ever given you permission to be angry about it. He was right, and she hated him for it. Yes, it bothers me. He left us with nothing, built a whole new life, and never looked back. My mother worked herself to the bone while he was playing Happy Family in Arizona. So yes, Marco, it bothers me. Is that what you wanted to hear? I wanted to hear the truth. That's all I ever want from you. Why? Why does any of this matter? Because I need to understand who you are, your triggers, your weaknesses, the things that will make you loyal or make you run. He said it clinically, like he was discussing a business acquisition. You're angry at your father for abandoning you. You're watching your mother die slowly. You've spent your entire adult life invisible, unrewarded, grinding yourself down to nothing. That rage has to go somewhere. I need to know where. Elena's jaw tightened. I'm not going to be your weapon. I don't want a weapon. I have plenty of those. I want someone who understands what it means to survive in a world that doesn't care if you live or die. Someone who's learned to be invisible when necessary, and visible when it counts. You're that person. You don't know me well enough to make that assessment. I know you better than you think. Marco pulled out a folder from the seat pocket in front of him, handed it to Elena. Open it. Inside were photographs. Elena at the restaurant, Elena on the train, Elena at the hospital visiting her mother. Dozens of them, taken over months, documenting her routine with uncomfortable precision. You had me followed, she said quietly. Yes. For how long? 6 months, give or take. Elena closed the folder before she could see more. Her hands were shaking again. This is stalking. This is due diligence. I don't make investments without research. I'm not an investment. I'm a person. You're both. Marco took the folder back. And before you ask, no, I didn't enjoy invading your privacy. But I needed to know if you were who I thought you were. Someone strong enough to survive what I'm offering. Someone desperate enough to take the risk. And if I wasn't, then we wouldn't be having this conversation. The car turned onto a gravel road, tires crunching over stones. Trees formed a canopy overhead, filtering sunlight into scattered fragments. Elena caught glimpses of a building through the branches. Large, stone, old money architecture hiding in the woods. The house emerged like something from another era. 3 stories of gray stone and dark wood, windows that reflected the forest back at itself. A circular driveway surrounding a fountain that wasn't running. Beautiful in a way that suggested no expense had been spared, but cold. The kind of place that looked more like a fortress than a home. The driver parked near the front entrance. Marco got out first, waited for Elena. She climbed out slowly, taking in the surroundings. No neighbors, no road noise. Just trees and silence and the kind of isolation that could be peaceful or terrifying depending on your perspective. Welcome, Marco said, gesturing toward the entrance. To what? Your evil lair? To my home. When I need privacy, I come here. And how often do you need privacy? More often than you'd think. The interior matched the exterior. High ceilings, dark wood floors, furniture that looked expensive and uncomfortable. Art on the walls that Elena didn't recognize but suspected was valuable. Everything immaculate, perfectly placed, like a museum display of how wealthy people lived. A woman appeared from a side hallway. Late 50s, gray hair pulled back severely, dressed in simple black clothing. She nodded to Marco, glanced briefly at Elena with an expression that gave away nothing. This is Mrs. Chen, Marco said. She maintains the house. If you need anything, ask her. Your room is upstairs, second door on the left, Mrs. Chen said. Her English carried a faint accent Elena couldn't place. Dinner is at 7. She disappeared before Elena could respond. She's not much for conversation, Marco said, but she's efficient. Your things will be unpacked by the time you get upstairs. I can unpack my own bag. I'm sure you can, but you won't need to. He checked his watch. You have 3 hours before dinner. Rest. Explore the house if you want. Just don't go into the East Wing. That's private. Of course you have a forbidden wing. Do you also have a basement full of secrets and a library with a hidden door? Yes, to the library. The basement is just a wine cellar. Marco started toward a hallway. We'll talk more at dinner. There are things you need to understand before tomorrow. What happens tomorrow? You start learning what you actually signed up for. He left before she could ask more questions. Elena stood in the enormous entryway surrounded by expensive emptiness and wondered what the hell she'd gotten herself into. The room upstairs was larger than her entire apartment. King-sized bed, sitting area with a view of the forest, attached bathroom with a tub that could fit 3 people. Her small duffel bag looked ridiculous sitting on the bed, a reminder of how out of place she was in this world. Mrs. Chen had indeed unpacked her clothes. Elena's worn t-shirts and discount jeans hung in a closet next to empty space meant for a wardrobe she didn't own. The contrast was almost funny. Almost. She sat on the bed, then immediately stood up again, too nervous to stay still, too wired to rest. She moved to the window, looking out at trees that went on forever. Her phone buzzed. Marcus. I understand. Take care of your family. If you need a reference, let me know. The kindness surprised her. Then she remembered what Marco had said. Marcus works for me. Had Marco already called him? Already smoothed over her sudden departure? The thought was both comforting and deeply unsettling. Another message. Unknown number. Treatment went well. Your mother is resting. Dr. Chen says her response is promising. M. Elena sank onto the edge of the bed. It had been less than 24 hours since Marco had made his promise, and her mother was already receiving treatment that should have been impossible. Whatever else he was, Marco De Luca delivered on his word. She typed, "Thank you." The response came quickly. "Rest. We have a long conversation ahead of us." Elena set her phone aside and lay back on the bed that was too soft, in a room that was too big, in a house that belonged to a man she didn't know. Sleep should have been impossible, but exhaustion was a tide that didn't care about anxiety or fear. It pulled her under despite her best efforts to stay afloat. She woke to knocking. Disoriented, Elena sat up, heart hammering. The light outside had changed, late afternoon sun slanting through windows, painting the room in shades of amber. "Dinner in 30 minutes, Mrs. Chen's voice came through the door. Elena checked her phone, 6:30. She'd been asleep for 2 hours. Her mouth tasted like cotton and her head felt stuffed with wool. She showered quickly in the enormous bathroom, using products that probably cost more than her usual grocery bill. The water pressure was perfect. The towels were impossibly soft, everything designed for comfort in a way that somehow made her more uncomfortable. Her clothes looked even shabbier after the shower. Elena did her best, settling on the least wrinkled shirt and jeans that didn't have any stains. No point trying to look like she belonged here. She didn't, and everyone knew it. The dining room was on the first floor, through a series of hallways that Elena half suspected were designed to confuse visitors. The table could have seated 20, but was set for 2, one at each end like they were strangers forced into uncomfortable proximity. Marco was already there, still in his suit, though he'd removed the jacket. He stood when she entered, a gesture of courtesy that seemed automatic. "Did you rest?" he asked. "I passed out. Not sure that counts as rest." "It'll do." He gestured to the chair. "Sit. Mrs. Chen makes excellent risotto." The food was, predictably, incredible. Elena ate mechanically, too aware of Marco watching her from the other end of the table. The distance between them seemed both too much and not enough. "You're wondering when I'm going to explain," Marco said after a few minutes of silence. "Among other things. What else? Whether you're going to kill me and bury me in the woods. Whether this is an elaborate sex trafficking scheme. Whether you're completely insane or just partially." Elena set down her fork. "Take your pick." I'm not going to kill you. I have no interest in trafficking anyone, and my sanity is debatable but functional. He took a sip of wine. As for explanations, where would you like me to start? How about what you actually do for a living? I facilitate transactions, connect buyers and sellers, provide security for shipments, offer consulting services to businesses that need discretion. That's a very sanitized way of saying you're a criminal. Criminal is a matter of perspective. I operate in markets that exist whether I participate in them or not. I simply ensure those markets run efficiently. Elena laughed, bitter. You sound like a business school textbook rationalizing the drug trade. I don't deal drugs. His voice sharpened slightly. I have lines I don't cross. That's one of them. How noble. What do you deal in? Information, access, solutions to problems that can't be solved through legal channels. Marco set down his wine glass. I know people. I know systems. I know how to move things, money, goods, information, from point A to point B without attracting unwanted attention. That's valuable. People pay well for it. People meaning criminals. People meaning anyone who needs discretion. Politicians, corporations, individuals with complicated situations. He paused. The world isn't divided into good people and bad people, Elena. It's divided into people who acknowledge the gray areas and people who pretend those areas don't exist. I acknowledge them. And profit from them. Yes. Is that worse than profiting from legal corruption? Than working for companies that destroy the environment or exploit labor? At least I'm honest about what I am. Elena pushed risotto around her plate. So what do you want from me? What's my role in your morally gray empire? You'll accompany me to meetings, social events, situations where having an intelligent, observant companion provides useful cover and additional perspective. Marco leaned back in his chair. You'll watch. Listen. Remember things. Later, you'll tell me what you noticed. Patterns, inconsistencies. The things people say when they think the help isn't paying attention. You want me to be a spy? I want you to be yourself, observant, invisible when necessary. The woman who survived 2 years at Aurelio's by reading every table, every customer, every shift in the room's energy. That skill set is worth more than you realize. And in exchange, you pay my mother's medical bills and my rent. In exchange, I pay you a salary, $50,000 a year to start. Housing and expenses covered. Health insurance. Your mother's medical care, all of it, fully funded. After 6 months, if you're still interested, we renegotiate. The numbers didn't make sense. Elena had been preparing for some kind of Faustian bargain, not a job offer with benefits. Why so much? Because loyalty costs money. Because I need you focused, not distracted by survival. And because I can afford it. Marco stood, walked to the bar cart against the wall, poured 2 glasses of something amber. He brought one to Elena. Also because you're worth it. You don't know that. I do. 6 months of surveillance, remember? I know exactly what you're worth. Elena took the glass but didn't drink. What if I say no? What if I decide this is too much, too dangerous, too insane? Then I drive you back to Chicago tomorrow. Your mother's treatment continues regardless. The rent money I've already transferred to your account is yours to keep. We part ways, and you never hear from me again. You'd really let me go? Just like that? I don't keep people against their will. That's another line I don't cross. Marco returned to his seat. But I don't think you'll go. Why not? Because you're curious. Because you're tired of being invisible. Because some part of you wants to see what happens if you step into a different life. He raised his glass. And because you recognize something in me. The same thing I recognize in you. What's that? Hunger. Not for food or money. Hunger for something more than survival. For a life that means something beyond just getting through another day. The words hit harder than they should have. Elena drank to avoid responding, let the liquor burn down her throat and settle in her chest like a coal. Tell me about the people you work with, she said. Who will I be meeting? Tomorrow you'll meet my associate, Dante. He handles logistics. Good man, loyal, can be intense. After that, we'll see. It depends on what develops. Marco swirled his drink. But there are things you need to understand before you meet anyone. rules that aren't negotiable. I'm listening. First, you never repeat anything you hear, not to friends, family, authorities, anyone. What you learn stays locked in your head. That's a given. Second, if you're ever in a situation where you feel unsafe, you leave. Immediately. I'll give you a phone with a direct line to my security team. You use it, they extract you, no questions asked. Okay. A third, you never lie to me. I don't care how bad the truth is. I can work with truth. Lies get people killed. Elena set down her glass. Same goes for you. You don't lie to me. Marco considered this. Fair. I won't lie to you, but understand there are things I won't tell you. Not because I'm being deceptive, but because knowing them would put you at risk. Can you live with that? I don't know. Can you live with me asking questions anyway? I'd be disappointed if you didn't. They finished dinner in relative silence. Mrs. Chen appeared to clear plates, moving like a ghost through the room. Elena wondered what the woman knew, what she'd seen in this house, whether she was complicit or just pragmatic. Come with me, Marco said when the table was clear. I want to show you something. He led her through more hallways, past rooms Elena couldn't identify in the dim lighting. They ended up at a heavy wooden door that Marco unlocked with a key from his pocket. The room beyond was an office, but not like any office Elena had seen before. One wall was entirely screens, at least a dozen monitors showing what looked like security feeds, data streams, maps. Another wall was covered in photographs, documents, notes connected by string like something from a detective show. This is where I work when I'm here, Marco said. The hub of my operations. Elena stepped closer to the wall of photographs. Faces she didn't recognize. Locations from around the world, notes in multiple languages. What is all this? Current projects, people I'm watching, situations that require monitoring. He pointed to a cluster of photos. That's a city councilman taking bribes from a real estate developer. That's the developer. That's the property they're trying to rezone. I'm helping a community group stop them. You're helping the good guys? I'm helping my clients. In this case, the community group hired me to gather evidence. The fact that they're the good guys is incidental. Elena moved along the wall. More photos, more notes, a web of connections she couldn't begin to untangle. How do you keep track of all this? Practice, pattern recognition, and help from people smarter than me. Marco pulled out his phone, tapped something. One of the screens changed, displaying a complex flowchart. This is what you'll learn. How to see patterns, how information connects, how to identify weak points in systems. I don't have training for this. You have instincts. That's better. Training can be taught. Instincts are innate. He moved to a desk, opened a drawer, pulled out a tablet. This is yours. Encrypted. Secure. You'll use it for notes, observations, anything you need to track. I'll teach you the system. Elena took the tablet, felt the weight of it. Commitment, made solid. When do we start? Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Dante arrives at 9. You'll sit in on the meeting, observe, take notes. Afterward, we debrief. You tell me what you noticed. I tell you what you missed. We build from there. And if I'm terrible at this? You won't be. But if you are, we adjust. Find what you're good at and focus there. Marco locked the door as they left the office. This isn't prison, Elena. You're not trapped. I meant what I said. You can leave any time. But I think you'll surprise yourself. They walked back toward the main staircase in silence. Elena's mind was spinning, trying to process everything she'd seen, everything he'd said. This wasn't what she'd expected. She'd prepared for something darker, more immediately dangerous. Instead, she'd gotten structure, systems, a job that sounded almost legitimate if you ignored the parts that definitely weren't. I have one more question, she said as they reached the stairs. Only one? For tonight, the rest can wait. Elena stopped, turned to face him. Why me? Really? Not the skills or the observation or any of that. Why did you pick me specifically? There are thousands of invisible people in Chicago. What made you notice me? Marco was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried something she hadn't heard before. Uncertainty, maybe, or vulnerability buried under layers of control. 3 months ago, I was at Aurelio's. Bad night. Deal had gone wrong, lost someone I trusted. I was sitting in that corner booth trying to decide how to handle the fallout. And you brought me water. Simple thing. But you looked at me, really looked, and you said, rough night? Like you actually cared about the answer. Elena didn't remember. She'd served hundreds of people in that booth. I said yes, Marco continued. And you said, it'll pass. Everything does. Then you walked away. Didn't push for conversation, didn't try to fix anything, just acknowledged it and moved on. And I realized you understood something most people don't. That sometimes the best thing you can do for someone is see them and give them space at the same time. That's why you stalked me for 6 months? Because I brought you water and made small talk? No, that's why I started paying attention. The stalking came after I realized you did that for everyone, saw people. Made them feel human for 30 seconds. Despite being exhausted and broke and invisible yourself, that's rare. That's valuable. That's why you... Elena didn't know what to say to that. Part of her wanted to call bullshit, to say he was romanticizing a survival mechanism she'd developed to get through shifts. But another part recognized the truth in it. She did see people. Even when it cost her energy she didn't have. Go to bed, Marco said. Tomorrow's a long day. She climbed the stairs without looking back, hyper-aware of his eyes on her until she turned the corner. In her room, she locked the door and leaned against it, breathing hard. Her phone showed 3 missed calls from her mother. Elena called back, sitting on the edge of the too-soft bed. Where are you? Catherine sounded stronger than she had in weeks. The hospital said you'd arranged everything, but you're not answering your phone, and... I'm fine, Mom. I'm safe. I took a job. It required leaving the city for a few days. What kind of job? Consulting work. It's complicated, but the pay is good. Really good. Good enough to cover everything. Elena, her mother's voice sharpened. What have you gotten yourself into? Something that's going to keep you alive. That's all that matters. Not if it puts you in danger. I'm not in danger, I'm just in over my head. But I can swim. I promise. They talked for another 10 minutes, Elena dodging questions, her mother pressing for details Elena couldn't give. By the time they hung up, Catherine sounded suspicious but resigned. The treatment was working. That was enough for now. Elena lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, mind refusing to quiet. Tomorrow she'd meet Dante, whoever he was. Tomorrow she'd start learning whatever Marco wanted to teach her. Tomorrow her new life would begin in earnest. She thought about the photographs on the wall, the screens full of data, the web of connections Marco navigated like a spider in the center of everything. She thought about the way he'd looked at her when he explained why he'd noticed her, like she was something rare instead of something disposable. She thought about the choice she'd made, whether it was already too late to unmake it. Sleep came eventually, restless and full of dreams she wouldn't remember. When she woke to gray light filtering through unfamiliar windows, Elena lay still for a moment, taking inventory. Still alive. Still here. Still moving forward into unknown territory with no map and no guarantee she'd survive the journey. But at least she was moving. That was something. 7:30. Time to get up. Time to start learning what she'd actually signed up for. Time to find out if Marco's faith in her was justified or if she'd crash and burn in spectacular fashion. Either way, there was no going back. The door had closed behind her. The only direction left was forward. Elena got up and started getting ready to meet her future. The shower was running when Elena woke the second time, confused until she realized it was coming from down the hall. Marco, probably. She checked her phone. 7:45. 15 minutes until their meeting. She dressed quickly, the same jeans and a different shirt that looked just as cheap in the morning light. Downstairs, Mrs. Chen had set out breakfast in a smaller dining room. Coffee, fruit, pastries that smelled like they'd been baked an hour ago. Elena ate standing up, too nervous to sit. Marco appeared at exactly 8, hair still damp, dressed in dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. Casual by his standards, he poured coffee, black, and leaned against the counter. How'd you sleep? Like someone who's questioning every life choice that led them here, Elena said. That's normal. It passes. He took a sip of coffee. Or it doesn't, and you leave. Either way, you'll know soon enough. Comforting. I'm not here to comfort you. I'm here to give you options you didn't have before. He set down his cup. Come on, We'll start in the office. The wall of screens was already active when they entered, data scrolling across monitors in patterns Elena couldn't decipher. Marco sat at the desk, gestured for her to take the chair beside him. "This is the first lesson," he said, pulling up a file on the main screen. "Information architecture, how data connects, how to see patterns in chaos." The screen filled with what looked like a network diagram. Names, dates, locations, all connected by lines of varying thickness. "This is a shipping operation, legitimate on the surface, but look here." He pointed to a cluster of connections. "These shipments all arrive on the same day of the week, same port, same customs inspector. That's not coincidence." Elena leaned closer. "Someone's being paid off." "Exactly. The pattern tells the story if you know how to read it." Marco pulled up another file. "Now look at this one. What do you see?" It took Elena a minute, then she noticed it. "The gaps. Every third Tuesday, nothing, like clockwork." "Good. Why would a shipping company have scheduled gaps?" "Maintenance?" "Possible. Or," Elena thought about it, "they're moving something they don't want documented, using the scheduled downtime as cover." Marco smiled, brief but genuine. "You're faster than I expected. Most people take weeks to start seeing patterns. You saw it in 90 seconds. I've been reading rooms for years. This is just a different kind of room. It's exactly that." He closed the files, opened a new one. "This is today's situation. Dante's bringing information about a problem. Someone's been skimming from one of my operations, small amounts, careful but consistent. I need to know who, why, and whether they're working alone." And you want me to listen while you two talk?" "I want you to watch Dante while he talks. He's loyal, but he's also human. If he knows more than he's saying, or if he's nervous about something he's not mentioning, you'll see it." Marco turned to face her. "People lie with words all the time. Their bodies are harder to control. You already know this. You've been reading customers' micro-expressions to figure out if they'll tip well." He wasn't wrong. Elena had learned to spot the subtle tells. The way someone's shoulders tightened when you mentioned the check. The brief eye contact that meant they were about to ask for something complicated. The fake smile that telegraphed a complaint coming. "What am I looking for specifically?" "Anything that doesn't fit. Hesitation when there shouldn't be. Confidence when he should be uncertain. Watch his hands, his posture, where his eyes go when he's thinking." Marco stood, moved to the wall of photographs. "Dante's been with me for 8 years. He's good at his job. But everyone has tells. Find his." A phone buzzed. Marco checked it, then looked at Elena. "He's here, early. That's unusual." They met Dante in the main sitting room. He was younger than Elena expected, maybe 35, with dark hair cropped short and the build of someone who spent serious time in a gym. He wore jeans and a leather jacket, looked more like a bouncer than a logistics coordinator. When he saw Elena, his expression flickered, surprise, then assessment, then carefully neutral. "Dante, this is Elena," Marco said. "She'll be working with me. Elena, Dante Moretti." Dante extended his hand. His grip was firm, testing. Marco didn't mention he was bringing anyone new on board. "I don't mention everything." Marco settled into one of the chairs, gestured for them to sit. "What did you find?" Dante glanced at Elena again, uncertain. Marco caught it immediately. "Anything you'd say to me alone, you can say in front of her. She's cleared." That wasn't exactly true, but Dante seemed to accept it. He pulled out a tablet, swiped through screens. "The warehouse on Cicero. We've been losing inventory. Started small, couple $100 a month. Now it's up to $5,000. Someone's walking out with product and covering their tracks in the books." "Cameras?" Marco asked. "Disabled for maintenance on the nights the inventory goes missing. Convenient timing. So whoever's doing it has access to security systems. Or they're paying someone who does." Dante's jaw tightened. "I ran background on everyone with that kind of access. 3 possibilities. But one of them..." He hesitated, and Elena saw it. The slight pause before continuing. The way his eyes dropped to his tablet instead of meeting Marco's gaze. "One of them is Carlo's nephew, the kid we brought on 6 months ago." Marco went very still. "You're certain?" "Fits the timeline. He's been working nights when the gaps happen, has the access codes, and he's been spending money he shouldn't have. New car, expensive clothes. That's circumstantial. I know, but the pattern... Dante stopped himself. I wanted to bring it to you before I moved on it. Marco was quiet for a long moment. Elena watched them both. Dante's shoulders had tightened. His fingers drummed once against his thigh, then stopped like he'd caught himself. Nervous. But not about the theft. About something else. How's Carlo? Marco asked, his tone casual. Too casual. Haven't talked to him in a few weeks. But you'll need to, if we're investigating his nephew. Yeah. Dante's hand went to the back of his neck, rubbing. Another tell. I wanted your call on how to handle that. Carlo's been with you longer than I have. This could get messy. It's already messy. Marco leaned back in his chair. Set up surveillance on the nephew. I want confirmation before we do anything. And Dante... He waited until Dante met his eyes. Don't mention this to Carlo yet. Not until we're sure. Understood. They talked logistics for another 20 minutes. Surveillance schedules. Who to assign. How to document without alerting the target. Elena listened, took mental notes, but mostly she watched Dante. The way he kept touching his phone in his pocket. The way his eyes went to the windows every few minutes like he was checking something outside. When the meeting ended, Dante left quickly. Too quickly. Marco walked him to the door, said something Elena couldn't hear, then came back to the sitting room. Well? He asked. He's lying about something, Elena said immediately. Marco's expression didn't change. What makes you say that? The nephew is probably guilty. But that's not what Dante's nervous about. When you asked about Carlo, he deflected. And he's been checking his phone compulsively, like he's waiting for a message he doesn't want to miss. Good. What else? He didn't want me here. He tried to hide it, but he was uncomfortable the whole time. Either he doesn't trust new people or he's worried about what I might notice. Both, probably. Marco moved to the windows, looking out at the driveway where Dante's car was disappearing down the road. He's been asking to bring his girlfriend around. Meet her, get her involved in some of the social aspects of the business. I've been putting him off. Why? Because I don't trust people I haven't vetted, and something about the timing bothers me. He's been with me 8 years, never mentioned wanting to bring anyone into this world. Now suddenly he's pushing for it. Elena stood, moved closer to the windows. You think the girlfriend's connected to the theft? I think coincidences are usually just patterns we haven't identified yet. Marco turned to face her. I need you to meet her. Social setting. Somewhere Dante won't be watching too closely. Get a read on her. I don't even know these people. How am I supposed to... You read people for a living. This is the same thing, just higher stakes. He pulled out his phone, typed something. I'm setting up a dinner tomorrow night. You, me, Dante, and the girlfriend. Casual, just drinks and conversation. You watch her. Tell me what you see. And if I'm wrong, if I read her badly and someone gets hurt because of it, then we adjust. This isn't precision surgery, Elena. It's pattern recognition. Sometimes you're wrong. The key is being wrong fast enough that you can correct course. Marco pocketed his phone. You did well just now. Caught things I already suspected but needed confirmed. You were testing me. I'm always testing you. Everyone. All the time. That's how you stay alive in this business. The casual way he said it made Elena's stomach drop. Has anyone ever tested you and failed? Yes. What happened to them? Marco met her eyes, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw something cold there. Something that reminded her exactly what kind of man he was beneath the expensive suits and careful courtesy. They're not around anymore to answer that question. Elena looked away first. I need air. There's a path behind the house, leads to a clearing about half a mile out. Mrs. Chen can show you. She left before he could say anything else, finding Mrs. Chen in the kitchen and getting directions with minimal conversation. The path was obvious once she found it, wide enough for easy walking, marked by stones every 20 feet. The forest was different in daylight, still quiet, but less ominous. Elena walked fast, needing to move, needing to think. What the hell was she doing here? Playing spy for a man who casually implied he'd had people killed, learning to spot lies in a world where everyone lied about everything. The clearing opened suddenly, a break in the trees with a view of rolling hills beyond. Someone had placed a bench there, weathered wood that looked like it had been there for years. Elena sat, pulling her jacket tighter against the October cold. Her phone buzzed. Her mother. "Hey," Elena answered. "The treatment is working." Catherine's voice was stronger today, brighter. "Dr. Chen says my markers are improving faster than expected. She's never seen this particular protocol work this quickly." "That's amazing, Mom." "It is. But Elena," her mother's tone shifted. "This costs money we don't have. I know you said you have a new job, but this kind of treatment, the speed they're moving, the level of care, this is money. What did you agree to?" Elena watched clouds move across the sky, too fast for the stillness around her. "Something that's keeping you alive. That's all you need to know." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer I can give you." Silence. Then quietly, "Are you safe?" The question was complicated. Was she safe? Probably. Marco seemed to mean what he said about not hurting her. But safe from what? From physical danger, maybe. From getting dragged into something she couldn't escape? That was less clear. "I'm safe," Elena lied. "I promise." They talked for a few more minutes before Catherine had to go for another round of tests. Elena sat alone in the clearing, phone in her hands, trying to catalog the ways her life had splintered into before and after. Before, invisible, poor, drowning slowly. After, visible to exactly one person who terrified her, financially stable for the first time in her adult life, drowning in different ways. She wasn't sure which was worse. "You're thinking too hard." Marco's voice came from behind her. Elena hadn't heard him approach. "I can see it from here." "How long have you been standing there?" "Long enough." He came around the bench, didn't sit. "Your mother's doing well." "You were listening?" "No, but I get updates from Dr. Chen. She's excellent, by the way, one of the best oncologists in the country. Your mother's lucky to have her." "My mother's lucky to have you paying for her." Elena looked up at him. Why does that feel wrong? Someone's literally dying cancer getting the treatment she needs should feel like a miracle. Instead, it feels like a transaction. It is a transaction. I'm not pretending otherwise. Marco finally sat, leaving space between them. I'm paying for something I want. You're providing it. Your mother benefits. Everyone gets what they need. Except it's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. People complicate things with guilt and morality. But at the core, every relationship is transactional. I'm just honest about the terms. Elena turned to face him. Do you actually believe that? Or is that just how you justify what you do? Both. No hesitation. I believe the world operates on exchanges of value. But yes, framing it that way makes the uglier parts easier to live with. We all tell ourselves stories, Elena. Mine just happens to be unusually transparent. The people you mentioned earlier, the ones who failed your tests, did they get a transaction too, or just consequences? Marco was quiet for a moment. They got what they chose. Everyone makes choices. Some choices have fatal consequences. That's not cruelty. That's just reality. You talk about killing people like it's a business decision, because in my world, it is. I don't enjoy it. I don't seek it out. But I operate in a space where violence is currency. Refusing to acknowledge that doesn't make me moral. It makes me dead. The bluntness was almost refreshing. No euphemisms, no attempts to make it sound better than it was. Just truth, delivered flat. Have you ever killed anyone? Elena asked. Yes. How many? Does the number matter? I don't know. Maybe. Marco looked at her, expression unreadable. 3 people, directly. Others have died because of decisions I made, but 3 I killed myself. All of them were trying to kill me first. Does that make it better? I don't know, Elena said honestly. Neither do I. I sleep fine, if that's what you're asking. But I don't know if that means I'm well-adjusted or just broken in ways I don't recognize anymore. They sat in silence for a while. Elena tried to process this information, fit it into the picture of Marco she was building. Dangerous, yes, she'd known that. But hearing him confirm it, state it so plainly, made it real in a way it hadn't been before. If I stay, she said slowly, if I keep doing this, will I have to do things like that? Will I have to hurt people? No, that's not your role. Your role is observation, information gathering. I have people who handle violence. You're not one of them. But I'll know about it when it happens. Probably. Is that a problem? Elena thought about it. Really thought about it. I don't know yet. Ask me after I've actually seen what this life looks like. Fair. Marco stood, offered his hand. Come on, we have work to do. Dinner prep for tomorrow. You need to know enough about Dante's girlfriend to ask the right questions. She took his hand, let him pull her up. His grip was warm, solid. He released her quickly, professional distance restored. They walked back to the house in silence. Elena's mind was churning, processing everything. The meeting with Dante, the conversation just now, the shape of the world she was stepping into, revealing itself in fragments. The office felt different now that she understood more. The screens weren't just data, they were lives, decisions, consequences mapped out in real time. Marco pulled up a file, showed her photographs of a woman in her late 20s. Pretty, dark hair, bright smile in the photos. This is Sofia Russo, Marco said. Dante's girlfriend. They met 7 months ago at a bar. She works as a paralegal. Clean background. No criminal record. Nothing that raises flags on paper. But something bothers you about her. Timing. Dante meets her right before the theft starts. She pushes to meet me, get involved, right when the pattern becomes obvious. Could be coincidence. But you don't believe in coincidences. I believe in patterns. He pulled up more photos. These are from her social media, public stuff. Look at them. Tell me what you see. Elena studied the images. Sofia at dinner with friends. Sofia at the gym. Sofia at what looked like a company party. Normal life documented the way everyone documented their lives now. Then she noticed it. The locations, these restaurants, these bars, they're all near your properties. The warehouse on Cicero, that shipping facility on the south side. She's always near places you operate. Good. What else? Elena looked closer. The dates. She posts consistently except, she checked, except for gaps. Same gaps as the inventory losses. Marco nodded slowly. I noticed that too. Could be nothing. Could be everything. You think she's running the operation, using Dante to access your systems. Or Dante's using her as a scapegoat, or they're working together, or I'm seeing patterns that don't exist because I'm paranoid. He closed the files. That's why I need you tomorrow. Fresh eyes. No history with these people. Just observation. What if I'm wrong? Then I trust my instincts over your reading and we adjust. But I don't think you'll be wrong. Marco turned off several screens. Go rest. Tomorrow will be long. Elena left him there, surrounded by monitors and data and the architecture of a life she was only beginning to understand. In her room, she lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling, trying to find the person she'd been 3 days ago. That Elena felt like a stranger now. Someone who'd lived smaller, safer, trapped by circumstances, but at least trapped in something familiar. This Elena, the one lying in a mansion in the woods, learning to spy for a man who'd killed 3 people. She didn't recognize this version at all. Her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Looking forward to meeting you tomorrow. Dante says you're smart. Sofia. Elena stared at the message. How did Sofia have her number? Had Dante given it to her, or had she gotten it some other way? She typed back, looking forward to meeting you too. The response was immediate. Be warned, I ask a lot of questions. Can't help it. Lawyer brain. I'll try to keep up. See you at 7. Elena set the phone down. Her hands were shaking again. This was different from serving tables, reading customers for tips. This was reading someone who might be dangerous, might be innocent, might be something in between. And getting it wrong could mean, what? She didn't even know. She pulled out the encrypted tablet Marco had given her, opened it. The interface was simple, clean, space for notes. She started typing, documenting everything from today. The meeting with Dante. The patterns in Sofia's social media. The way Dante had touched his phone. All of it, in as much detail as she could remember. Writing it down helped. Made it feel less overwhelming, more like data she could analyze than chaos she was drowning in. A knock on the door. Mrs. Chen's voice. Dinner in 20 minutes. Thank you, Elena called back. She changed into the other pair of jeans, slightly nicer, fewer stains, and headed downstairs. Marco was already in the dining room, reading something on his phone. He looked up when she entered. You texted Sophia back. Elena froze. How did you? I monitor communications on phones I provide. You should assume anything you say or write is visible to me. He set his phone down. It was a good response, by the way. Neutral, friendly, exactly right. You could have warned me you'd be reading my messages. I could have, but then you wouldn't learn to be careful about what you commit to text. He poured wine, offered her a glass. Consider it a lesson. In this world, privacy is a luxury. Assume you're always being watched, always being listened to. Act accordingly. Elena took the wine, drank more than was probably wise. Is my room bugged? No, that's a line I don't cross. But phone calls, texts, emails, all fair game if they happen on devices I provide. What about my personal phone? I could access it if I wanted to. I don't. Some boundaries are pragmatic. Violating your personal communications would make you paranoid and less effective. I need you clear-headed. How generous. It's not generosity, it's strategy. Marco raised his glass. To your first day, you did well. They drank. Dinner arrived. Mrs. Chen had made something with pasta and seafood that Elena would have appreciated more if her stomach wasn't tied in knots. They ate in relative silence, the kind that was starting to feel almost comfortable. Tell me about tomorrow, Elena said. What's the play? No play, just dinner. Let Sophia talk. She will. Dante says she's chatty when she's comfortable. You listen. Ask questions that seem natural but give you information. Where she grew up, how she met Dante, what she does for work, the usual getting to know you script. And you'll be watching me watch her. Always. Marco smiled slightly. You're learning. That's good. I'm terrified. Even better, fear keeps you sharp. It's confidence that gets people killed. After dinner, Elena retreated to her room early. She needed time to think, to prepare, to figure out how to be someone who could sit across from a potential criminal and smile like it was just a normal social dinner. She practiced in the mirror. Casual interest, friendly questions, the same face she'd worn for hundreds of customers, adapted for different stakes. It felt fake, probably because it was. Her phone rang. Not her mother this time. Marcus, from the restaurant. I heard you quit, he said when she answered. Everything okay? Family situation. It's complicated. Mr. DeLuca called me. Said you were handling some things for him. Asked me to put in a good word if anyone calls for a reference. Elena's grip tightened on the phone. He did? Yeah. Look, I don't know what you've gotten into, but Marcus hesitated. DeLuca's not someone you say no to. Be careful. I will. And Elena? If you need help, if things go wrong, you call me. Okay? I know people. I can get you out. The offer surprised her. Marcus had always been professional, but distant. She'd never thought he cared beyond her ability to serve tables efficiently. Thank you, she said quietly. Just be smart. Whatever he's paying you, it's not worth your life. He hung up before she could respond. Elena sat holding the phone, Marcus's warning echoing in her head. He was right. She knew he was right. But knowing something and being able to act on it were different things entirely. She was in this now, for better or worse. The only way out was through. Elena set her alarm for 6:30. Tomorrow she'd meet Sophia Russo. Tomorrow she'd find out if she was actually any good at this, or if she'd just gotten lucky reading Dante. Tomorrow would tell her if Marco's faith in her was justified or catastrophically misplaced. Sleep came hard. When it did, she dreamed of drowning again. But this time, the hand reaching down belonged to someone she couldn't see, and she couldn't tell if they were pulling her up or pushing her under. Morning came with rain hammering against the windows, turning the forest into a blur of gray and green. Elena stood under the shower longer than necessary, letting the hot water work out knots in her shoulders that had nothing to do with how she'd slept. By the time she made it downstairs, Marco was already in the office, 3 monitors running different data streams. He glanced up when she entered. Coffee's in the kitchen. Drink it fast. We have 4 hours before Dante and Sophia arrive. I thought dinner was at 7. It is, but I need you prepared. Come here. Elena grabbed coffee first, then joined him at the desk. He pulled up a video file, pressed play. Security footage from what looked like a bar. The timestamp read 5 months ago. This is the night Dante met Sofia. Watch. The footage showed a crowded bar, typical Friday night chaos. Then Dante appeared, moving through the crowd. He stopped at the bar, ordered a drink. 2 minutes later, Sofia appeared beside him. She said something. He laughed. They talked for maybe 30 seconds before someone bumped into Sofia, spilling her drink. Dante offered to buy her another one. Seems normal, Elena said. Watch again. This time, focus on Sofia before she approaches Dante. Marco rewound the footage. Elena watched more carefully. Sofia entered the frame from the left, scanned the room briefly, then her eyes locked on Dante. She moved purposefully, positioned herself exactly where she needed to be. When someone bumped into her, Elena caught it. The subtle shift in Sofia's body, like she'd anticipated the contact, maybe even caused it. She targeted him, Elena said quietly. Looks like it. Could still be coincidence. Maybe she thought he was attractive, made her move. People do that at bars. Marco closed the file. But combined with everything else, the timing, the locations, the gaps, it builds a pattern. You think she was sent to get close to him? I think someone who wants to steal from me would need inside information. Dante has that information. Sofia has access to Dante. He pulled up another file. This is where it gets interesting. Sofia works for a law firm, corporate law, mostly legitimate, but one of their clients is a shipping company I've been watching. Watching why? Because they're trying to undercut my rates, take my clients. Standard competition, except they've been getting information they shouldn't have. Routes, prices, client lists, information that's supposed to be secure. Elena's mind started connecting pieces. You think the law firm is feeding the shipping company your information through Sofia? I think it's possible. And if Sofia's getting close to Dante to access more, then the theft isn't random. It's reconnaissance. Testing my security, learning my systems, preparing for something bigger. What's bigger than $5,000 a month in stolen inventory? Marco met her eyes. A complete takeover of my operation. You eliminate my competitive advantage, steal my clients, and suddenly my entire network collapses. Then they step in, buy up the pieces for cheap, and I'm out of the game. The scope of it hit Elena like a physical weight. This wasn't about a theft. This was about destroying everything Marco had built. And Dante, loyal Dante, who'd been with him 8 years, was the vulnerability they'd exploited. Does Dante know, she asked, that Sofia might be using him? That's what I need to find out tonight. If he knows and he's complicit, that's one problem. If he's being played, that's a different problem. Either way, I need to know which one before I act. And if he's innocent, if Sofia's really just his girlfriend and we're seeing patterns that aren't there, then tonight will be boring and we'll all have a nice dinner. Marco stood, stretched. But I don't think it will be boring. Get ready, dress nice. We're going to a restaurant I own in the city. More public, more witnesses, safer for everyone. Safer how? Less likely anyone does something stupid in front of 50 other diners. He said it casually, like violence was always a possibility that just needed to be managed. You'll ride with me. Dante and Sofia are meeting us there. Elena spent the next 3 hours trying on every combination of clothes she'd brought, none of them appropriate for dinner at the kind of restaurant Marco probably owned. She finally settled on black pants and the least wrinkled blouse she had, adding a jacket she'd bought at a thrift store 2 years ago. The result was presentable but clearly budget. She looked like what she was, someone pretending to belong in a world she'd just stumbled into. Marco knocked at 4. We're leaving in 10 minutes. When he saw her, his expression flickered. Not disapproval exactly. Assessment. That won't work, he said. It's all I have. I know. Wait here. He disappeared, came back 5 minutes later with a garment bag. Mrs. Chen keeps clothes here for situations like this. Try these. Inside the bag were 3 dresses, all in Elena's size. 1 black, 1 dark blue, 1 deep red. Simple cuts, expensive fabric, the kind of clothes she'd served to women wearing at Aurelio's but never imagined owning. How did you know my size? I know everything about you, remember? Marco checked his watch. 5 minutes. Pick one. He left. Elena chose the black dress because it felt safest, least attention-grabbing. It fit perfectly, which was somehow more unsettling than if it had been wrong. She added the only shoes she had that weren't sneakers, basic black flats, and checked herself in the mirror. She looked different. Not transformed. She wasn't Cinderella, but polished, like someone who might actually belong at Marco's table instead of serving it. The drive back to the city took 90 minutes through rain that had settled into a steady, miserable drizzle. Marco spent most of it on phone calls in Italian, his voice clipped and precise. Elena listened without understanding the words, picking up emotion instead. Frustration. Controlled anger. Something about a shipment and customs. When he finally hung up, his jaw was tight. Problem? Elena asked. Same shipping company. They intercepted one of my deliveries. Legal, technically. They filed the right paperwork, claimed there was a safety concern. But it's bullshit. They're escalating. What happens to the shipment? Delayed by 2 weeks. My client gets angry. I lose money and credibility. He loosened his grip on the phone, forced his hands to relax. This is what I meant about them testing my systems. They're probing for weaknesses everywhere. And tonight's dinner is what? Your countermove? Tonight's dinner is information gathering. I don't countermove until I know exactly who's on the board and what they're really playing for. Marco glanced at her. You ready? No, but I'll fake it. Good enough. The restaurant was in the Gold Coast, the kind of neighborhood where the average entree cost what Elena used to make in a day. Valet parking, doorman, interior that looked like someone had spent millions making it look effortlessly elegant. The maitre d' greeted Marco by name, led them to a private corner booth with a view of the city lights smeared by rain. Elena slid in, hyper-aware of the dress, the setting, the eyes tracking their movement through the dining room. They're already here, Marco said quietly, nodding toward the bar. Dante stood talking to a woman who had to be Sofia. She was prettier in person than in photographs, with an easy laugh and animated hand gestures. She wore a deep green dress that probably cost more than Elena's entire wardrobe, and she wore it like she was born to it. When she saw Marco, her face lit up. She touched Dante's arm, said something, and they walked over together. Marco, Sofia said warmly, extending her hand. Finally, Dante's told me so much about you. All terrible things, I'm sure. Marco shook her hand, then gestured to Elena. This is Elena. She's working with me. Sofia's attention shifted, and Elena felt the weight of assessment behind the friendly smile. Elena, the mysterious new addition Dante mentioned. He said you were smart. I love smart women. Too many men surround themselves with decorative idiots. The comment was pointed, testing. Elena smiled back. I try not to be decorative or an idiot. It's a work in progress. Sofia laughed, genuine. I like her already. Can we keep her? They settled into the booth. Drinks appeared without anyone ordering, Marco's doing probably. Sofia dominated the conversation at first, asking Elena questions with the rapid-fire intensity of someone who actually listened to answers. Where was she from? Chicago, born and raised? What did she study? Literature before she had to leave school? Why'd she leave? Family situation. Did she miss it? Every day. The questions felt casual but weren't. Elena could feel Sofia mapping her, building a profile, looking for inconsistencies or weaknesses. It was exactly what Elena was supposed to be doing to her. So how'd you end up working with Marco? Sofia asked, sipping wine. He doesn't usually bring people into the fold quickly. I got lucky, Elena said. Right place, right time. He needed someone with specific skills. I needed a change. It worked out. What kind of skills? Observation, pattern recognition, basically professional people watching. Sofia's eyes gleamed. That sounds fascinating. What's the weirdest thing you've noticed about someone? The question was a trap. Too specific an answer would reveal too much, too vague, and Sofia would push harder. Elena thought fast. A guy at my old job, investment banker type, always polite, always generous with tips. But every Tuesday, his wedding ring was gone. Every Wednesday, it was back. Took me 3 months to notice the pattern. Having an affair? Probably. Or maybe he just didn't like wearing jewelry on Tuesdays. I don't judge. Elena shrugged. The pattern was the interesting part. Sofia leaned back, considering. You notice things other people miss. That's valuable. It's kept me employed. Dante had been quiet through this exchange, watching Elena with an expression she couldn't quite read. Not hostile, but wary, like he was trying to figure out whether she was a threat. Marco steered the conversation toward safer territory: the food, the weather, Chicago politics. Elena watched the dynamics. Dante's hand on Sophia's knee under the table. The way Sophia touched his arm when she laughed. They looked like a real couple, comfortable, connected. But there were moments, brief, barely there, when Sophia's eyes would drift to Marco while she was talking to Dante, when her smile would tighten just slightly if Dante said something she disagreed with. Small cracks in the performance, if it was a performance. Food arrived. The conversation flowed more easily with something to focus on. Elena let herself relax slightly, falling into the rhythm she knew. Watch, listen, stay. Just interesting enough to be included, but not so interesting she became the focus. "I have to ask," Sophia said, turning to Marco. "The shipping thing, the delays, that's connected to the company my firm represents, isn't it?" The table went quiet. Dante's expression shifted, surprise, then concern. Marco's face revealed nothing. "Which firm do you work for again?" Marco asked, tone casual. "Mitchell and Ross, corporate law. We represent Consolidated Freight, among others." Sophia met his eyes directly. "I'm not stupid, Marco. I know what you do. I know what Dante does. And I know Consolidated's been undercutting your business. I can read a room." "Can you?" Marco said. Not a question. "I can. And I'm guessing you're wondering if I'm involved. If I'm feeding them information, using Dante to access your operations." Sophia set down her fork. "So let me save you the investigation time." "No, I'm not. I don't like Consolidated. Their CEO is a creep who keeps hitting on associates, and their business practices are borderline illegal. I wouldn't help them if they paid me double my salary." Elena watched Dante. His surprise looked genuine. He hadn't known Sophia was going to do this. "That's a very direct confession," Marco said. "It's not a confession, it's a clarification." Sophia pulled out her phone, scrolled through something, then handed it to Marco. "That's an email from 3 weeks ago. Consolidated CEO asking me to dinner. I declined. He pushed. I filed an internal complaint. I'm on record as finding him professionally repulsive." Marco read the phone, handed it back. "That proves you don't like him. Not that you're not working for him." "True. But think about it strategically. If I wanted to infiltrate your operation through Dante, would I really announce that I work for your competitor's law firm? Would I bring it up at dinner in front of witnesses?" Sophia leaned forward. "I'm a lawyer, Marco. I know how to play subtle. This isn't subtle. This is me getting ahead of suspicion because I saw it in your eyes when you looked at me tonight." The honesty was startling. Either Sophia was exactly what she appeared, sharp, direct, unafraid, or she was playing a game several moves deeper than Elena could track. "What about the theft?" Marco asked. "From the warehouse on Cicero?" Sophia's expression flickered. "What theft?" $5,000 a month. Regular as clockwork. Started right around when you and Dante met. Dante's hand left Sophia's knee. "Marco, what the hell?" "Let her answer," Marco said, eyes still on Sophia. Sophia looked at Dante, then back at Marco. "I don't know anything about a theft, but if you think I'm involved, search my apartment, check my bank records. I have nothing to hide." "That's convenient." "It's the truth." Sophia's voice hardened. "Look, I get it. You don't trust people. You can't afford to. But I'm not your enemy. I'm in love with Dante. I want to build a life with him. That means understanding his world and figuring out how to exist in it without compromising who I am. That's all this is." Elena watched Dante's reaction. The shock was fading into something else. Hurt, maybe, or betrayal that Marco had investigated his girlfriend without telling him. "You should have told me," Dante said to Marco, voice low. "I'm telling you now." "By ambushing us at dinner? By accusing Sophia of—" He stopped, jaw working. "You've been watching her. Probably watching me too. How long?" "Long enough to notice patterns." "Patterns." Dante stood abruptly. "Sophia's right. You don't trust anyone. Not even people who've been loyal to you for years." "Loyalty isn't blanket immunity from scrutiny," Marco said calmly. "You know that." What I know is that you've crossed a line. Dante looked at Sophia. We're leaving. Sophia stood more slowly, her eyes still on Marco. For what it's worth, I understand why you did this. But Dante's right. You crossed a line. And if you'd just talked to him instead of playing spy games, you might have learned something useful. Like what? Marco asked. Like the fact that Carlo's nephew isn't the one stealing from you. I've met him. Sweet kid, scared of his own shadow. He's being set up. Sophia picked up her purse. But you'd rather play chess with people's lives than just ask direct questions. Good luck with that. She walked toward the exit. Dante hesitated, looking at Marco with an expression Elena couldn't quite parse. Then he followed Sophia out. The silence after they left was heavy. Elena sat frozen, trying to process what had just happened. That hadn't been reconnaissance. That had been a disaster. Well, Marco said finally, that went poorly. You think? Elena couldn't keep the edge out of her voice. You basically accused his girlfriend of corporate espionage over appetizers. I needed to see how she'd react. And? Marco was quiet, swirling wine in his glass. She reacted like someone telling the truth, or someone very good at lying. You still don't know which. No, but now I know she's smart enough to get ahead of accusations. That's useful information. He drained his glass. What did you see? Elena thought back through the dinner, pulling out details. She was nervous when she first sat down. Not about being caught, nervous about meeting you. Like she cared what you thought. And when you mentioned the theft, she was surprised. Actually surprised, not fake surprised. Her pupils dilated, her breathing changed. She didn't know about it. What about Dante? Hurt, angry, but also confused, like he's caught between you and her and doesn't know which way to lean. Elena paused. You're going to lose him over this, if you haven't already. Maybe. Or maybe he'll come back once he's had time to think. Marco signaled for the check. Either way, we learn things. Sophia's smarter than I gave her credit for. The nephew's probably innocent, and someone's playing a longer game than I thought. So what now? Now we regroup, figure out who's actually behind the theft, and I repair the damage with Dante. He stood, offered his hand to help Elena out of the booth. You did well tonight, saw things I needed confirmed. I watched you blow up a relationship with someone who's been loyal to you for 8 years. Yes, you did. Marco's expression was unreadable. Sometimes that's what this work requires, breaking things to see what's underneath. It's not pretty, but it's necessary. They drove back in silence. Elena stared out the window at Chicago sliding past, rain still falling, lights reflecting off wet pavement in streaks of color. She felt sick, not because of the food, but because she just watched someone destroy trust methodically, strategically, and she'd been complicit in it. You're angry at me, Marco said as they hit the highway. I'm angry at myself for helping. You were doing your job. My job shouldn't involve hurting people. Everyone hurts people, Elena. The only question is whether you do it intentionally for a purpose or accidentally because you're not paying attention. I prefer intentional. She didn't respond. Couldn't. The logic was sound but felt poisonous. Back at the house, Elena went straight to her room. She changed out of the borrowed dress, hung it carefully, and sat on the bed in her regular clothes like armor against the person she was becoming. Her phone buzzed. Dante. You didn't know, I get that. But you should know. Marco doesn't trust anyone, not really. Whatever he's told you, whatever he's promised, remember that. He'll burn you too if it serves his purposes. Elena stared at the message. Part of her wanted to argue, to defend Marco, but another part, the part that had just watched him systematically dismantle Dante's relationship, knew Dante was right. She typed back, I'm sorry about tonight. Not your fault. Just be careful. The conversation ended there. Elena lay back on the bed, exhaustion hitting her like a wave. 3 days ago, her biggest concern was making rent. Now she was caught in the middle of corporate espionage, watching relationships implode, learning to read people who might be planning to hurt the man who'd saved her mother's life. A knock on the door. Marco's voice. Can I come in? It's your house. He entered, stayed near the door. You're questioning whether this was worth it. Am I that obvious? You're tired. That makes people easy to read. He crossed to the chair by the window, sat. I owe you an explanation.
You don't owe me anything. You're paying me to watch people. I watched. Job done.
You're paying me to be honest. So I'll be honest. Marco leaned forward, elbows on knees. I suspected Sophia from the beginning, but I hoped I was wrong. I hoped Dante had found someone real, someone who could exist in this world without being corrupted by it. Tonight proved that wrong. Tonight proved she's smart enough to defend herself. That's not the same as being guilty. Maybe, but in my experience, people who are that quick with explanations usually have them prepared in advance. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Elena was starting to recognize as frustration. I might have lost Dante over this. You're right about that. And that's a cost I'll have to live with. Was it worth it? Marco met her eyes. Ask me in a week when I know whether Sophia's telling the truth or playing a game I haven't figured out yet. He stood to leave, paused at the door. For what it's worth, I am sorry you had to see that. This work, it requires making choices other people find unconscionable. I can live with being the villain if it means the people I care about stay safe, but I forget sometimes that watching someone be a villain is different than being one. After he left, Elena sat in the silence of her expensive room in a house owned by a man who'd just admitted he was willing to destroy relationships to maintain control. She thought about her mother, improving every day because Marco had made a phone call. She thought about the salary sitting in her bank account, more money than she'd seen in years. She thought about the choice she'd made 3 days ago and whether it was already too late to unmake it. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. You're in over your head. Get out while you still can. A friend. Elena's blood went cold. She showed the message to Marco immediately, found him still in the office, screens glowing in the darkness. He read it without expression. When did this come in? Just now? Number's a burner, untraceable. He pulled up tracking software, ran the message through analysis. Sent from downtown, near Consolidated's headquarters. Someone from the shipping company? Or someone who wants me to think it's from the shipping company. Marco saved the message, added it to a file. How do you feel about this? Terrified. Good. Fear means you're taking it seriously. He looked at her. The warning is interesting, though. If they wanted to hurt you, they wouldn't warn you first. This is psychological warfare. Make you paranoid, make you doubt, make you run. Classic intimidation. It's working. I know. But here's the thing about intimidation. It only works if you let it. Marco stood, moved closer. You're safe here. I have security you haven't seen. Guards, cameras, systems. No one gets close to this property without me knowing. And in the city, you'll have protection you won't see, but will definitely feel. Protection from what? I'm not important enough to threaten. You're important to me. That makes you a target. He said it matter-of-factly, like it was obvious. Welcome to the cost of being visible. People who want to hurt me will look for leverage. You're leverage now. The weight of that settled over Elena like a shroud. She'd wanted to be seen, to matter, to be more than invisible. Careful what you wish for. I can still leave, she said. Walk away. Go back to serving tables and being nobody. You can. I meant what I said. You're free to go any time. Marco's expression softened slightly. But they've already identified you as connected to me. Leaving doesn't erase that. It just makes you a target without protection. Elena's hands started shaking again. She pressed them together to make it stop. So I'm trapped. You're in it. There's a difference. Trapped means no options. You have options. They're just all complicated now. He pulled out his phone, typed something. I'm moving security up. Starting tomorrow, you'll have someone with you whenever you leave the property. Non-negotiable. I don't need a bodyguard. You do. You just don't want to admit it. Marco pocketed his phone. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we figure out who sent that message and what they actually want. But sleep was impossible. Elena lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the last 3 days. The restaurant. Marco's offer. The house. Dante. Sophia. The message. She'd stepped into a new life without understanding what that life actually meant. Visibility came with a price. Freedom came with chains. Power came with enemies who'd threaten anyone close to it. At 3 in the morning, she got up,
went to the window. Rain had stopped, leaving the forest dripping and dark.
Somewhere out there were people who wanted to hurt Marco, who'd identified her as a way to do it, who'd sent a warning that was really a threat. She thought about running, taking the money she had, getting her mother, disappearing into a different city with a different name, starting over somewhere nobody knew them. But Marco was right. They'd already seen her, marked her. Running wouldn't erase that. The only way out was through, whatever that meant, whatever it cost. Elena watched the sky slowly lighten from black to gray and tried to imagine a version of herself who could survive what was coming. She couldn't quite see her yet, but maybe that was the point. Maybe you didn't become someone new by imagining it. Maybe you became someone new by surviving things that would have destroyed who you used to be. Dawn broke pale and cold. Elena was still standing at the window when Mrs. Chen knocked with coffee and the news that Marco wanted to see her in the office. Time to find out what came next. Time to learn whether she was strong enough for this world, or if it would break her into pieces too small to put back together. Either way, there was no going back now. The office smelled like coffee and the particular tension that came from someone working through the night without sleep. Marco was still in yesterday's clothes, tie gone, sleeves rolled up, surrounded by screens that hadn't been turned off. He looked up when Elena entered, and she saw the exhaustion there, hidden under layers of control, but present nonetheless. "I found who sent the message," he said without preamble. Elena set her coffee down, moved closer to the desk. One of the screens showed security footage from outside a building she didn't recognize. Who? Carlo's nephew, the kid we thought was being set up. Marco pulled up a different screen, showed a text message log. He's been in contact with Consolidated's operations manager for 3 weeks, selling them information, routes, schedules, security protocols, everything. But Sophia said he was innocent. Sophia was wrong, or she was lying to protect him. Marco's jaw tightened. Either way, the pattern's clear now. The nephew's been feeding Consolidated our data. They've been using it to intercept shipments, undercut prices, steal clients, and last night, after our dinner, he panicked. Sent you that warning thinking it might scare you off, create chaos in my operation. Elena sank into the chair. What about Sophia? Was she involved? I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. Marco stood, stretched, vertebrae cracking. Carlo's bringing his nephew here in 2 hours. We're going to have a conversation. I need you there. Why? Because the kid's 23 and terrified. He might talk more freely if there's a woman in the room, less threatening. Marco moved to pour more coffee, his movements showing the fatigue he was trying to hide. Also because you need to see how these conversations go. Part of your education. Education in what? Interrogation? Education in how people break, how they confess, how you tell the difference between truth and self-preservation. He turned to face her. You don't have to stay if it makes you uncomfortable, but I think you should. Elena thought about the warning message, the implied threat, the fact that this kid had targeted her specifically to create problems for Marco. I'll stay. Good. Get breakfast. You'll need your energy. The next 2 hours crawled by. Elena tried to eat but managed maybe half a piece of toast before her stomach rebelled. She changed into jeans and a sweater, needing the armor of familiar clothes. Checked her phone obsessively even though there were no new messages. At 9:30, a car pulled up the driveway. Elena watched from the office window as Carlo emerged, followed by a younger man who had to be the nephew. The kid looked exactly as Sophia had described. Slight build, nervous energy, the kind of person who'd fold under pressure. Carlo looked worse, older than Elena had imagined, maybe late 50s, with the weathered face of someone who'd spent decades in a hard business. But it was the expression that caught her attention. Betrayal. Grief. The look of someone who'd trusted family and been destroyed by it. Marco met them in the main sitting room. Elena hung back near the doorway, trying to be present but not intrusive. The nephew, Danny, she heard Carlo call him, couldn't look at Marco. His eyes stayed on the floor, hands shoved deep in his pockets. Sit down, Danny, Marco said. His voice was calm, almost gentle. Nothing in it suggested threat. Danny sat on the edge of the couch like he might bolt any second. Carlo remained standing, arms crossed, radiating anger barely contained. Do you know why you're here? Marco asked. Danny nodded, still not making eye contact. I need to hear you say it. Because Danny's voice cracked. He tried again. Because I've been stealing from you and selling information to Consolidated. How long? 4 months? Maybe 5. Why? Danny finally looked up, and Elena saw tears tracking down his face. They offered me $50,000, said it was just information, said nobody would get hurt. I needed the money. My mom, Carlo's sister, she's got medical bills, and I thought... He stopped, wiped his eyes roughly. I thought I could help her. I didn't think about what it would do to you. To Carlo, I needed the money. The irony wasn't lost on Elena. She'd made similar calculations 3 days ago. Desperate people made desperate choices. The difference was Marco had offered her a way out that didn't involve betrayal. Danny had taken a different path. Who's your contact at Consolidated? Marco asked. Operations manager. Guy named Patterson. He approached me at a bar, said he knew I worked for you, asked if I wanted to make some easy money. Danny's hands were shaking. I said yes. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean anything, but I'm sorry. Carlo made a sound halfway between disgust and pain. You stupid kid. Do you have any idea what you've done? I know, I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this, Carlo snapped. Sorry doesn't undo 4 months of theft. Sorry doesn't erase the fact that you betrayed someone who gave you a job when nobody else would touch you. Marco held up a hand, and Carlo went quiet. What about the warning message? The one to Elena? Danny looked confused. What message? Last night, you sent Elena a text telling her to get out. I didn't send anything. I don't even know who Elena is. Marco pulled out his phone, showed the message. Danny read it, shook his head. That's not from me. I don't have this number. And I'm not... He looked genuinely lost. I stole inventory and sold information, but I never threatened anyone, I swear. Elena watched his face. The confusion looked real. The fear was definitely real. But the denial, that felt true too. He's telling the truth, she said quietly. Marco glanced at her, then back to Danny. Who else knows what you've been doing? Just Patterson, and... Danny hesitated. And? There's this lawyer, woman. She showed up at one of my meetings with Patterson. Said she was there to make sure everything was documented properly. Legal protection or something. Elena's stomach dropped. What did she look like? I don't know. Tall, dark hair, pretty. Wore expensive suits. Danny looked between them. Why? Marco's expression had gone very still. Did she give you a name? Sophia something. Russo? I think that was it. The silence in the room was absolute. Carlo's eyes widened. Elena felt like she'd been punched. Sophia hadn't just been Dante's girlfriend. She'd been coordinating the entire operation. When did you meet her? Marco asked, his voice still calm but with an edge now. 2 months ago, right after I started working with Patterson. She said she was there to protect Consolidated's interests, make sure I didn't back out or get caught. Danny's eyes widened as realization hit. Oh no, she's connected to you somehow, isn't she? She's dating my associate, Marco said. The man who brought you into my organization in the first place. Danny went white. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. She never mentioned. She said she was just a lawyer. I thought... You didn't think, Carlo said flatly. That's the problem. You never think past the next 5 minutes. Marco stood, moved to the windows. Elena could see him processing, fitting pieces together into a pattern he hadn't wanted to see. Sophia had played it perfectly. Get close to Dante. Use him for access. Coordinate with Consolidated through their mole. And when suspicion started circling, get out in front of it. Confront Marco directly. Play the wronged girlfriend. Make him doubt his own instincts. Where's Patterson now? Marco asked. I don't know. He was supposed to meet me tomorrow. Give me the next payment. Danny pulled out his phone with shaking hands. I can set up a meeting, help you catch him, whatever you need. Please, I'll do anything to make this right. Marco turned back to the room. You're going to make that meeting. You're going to wear a wire. And you're going to get Patterson to confirm everything. The theft, Sophia's involvement, Consolidated's plan. All of it recorded. And then? And then I decide what to do with you. Marco's voice was ice. But Danny, Understand this. The only reason you're still breathing is because Carlo vouched for you 8 months ago. That debt is paid now. If you screw this up, if you warn Patterson, if you do anything except exactly what I tell you, there won't be another conversation. Are we clear? Danny nodded so hard Elena thought his neck might snap. Get out. Carlo will give you the details. Marco waited until Danny had left, practically running for the door, before turning to Carlo. I'm sorry. I know he's family. Carlo's face was carved from stone. He stopped being family when he betrayed you. Do what you need to do. I won't interfere. After Carlo left, the room felt too quiet. Marco stood by the window, shoulders tight, staring out at nothing. Elena stayed near the doorway, not sure if she should speak or leave or what. Sophia played me, Marco said finally. Played all of us. And I almost let her get away with it because Dante vouched for her, because I wanted to believe people could be decent in this business. You couldn't have known. I should have. The signs were there. I saw them. He stopped, jaw working. I let sentiment cloud judgment. That's how people die in this world. Elena moved closer. What are you going to do? About Sophia? Nothing yet. I need proof first. Patterson's testimony, Danny's recording, something concrete that Dante can't deny or rationalize away. Marco turned to face her. Then I'm going to give Dante a choice, her or me, his loyalty or his heart, and we'll see which one he picks. That's cruel. It's necessary. If he picks her, he becomes my enemy. If he picks me, he lives with knowing the woman he loved was using him. Either way, he gets hurt. But at least this way, he gets to choose how. The coldness of it made Elena's chest ache. Is this what you meant? About breaking things to see what's underneath? Yes, and I hate it, but I'll do it anyway because the alternative is worse. Marco pulled out his phone, started typing. I'm sending security detail to your mother's hospital, just in case. Sophia knows about her. If she's desperate, she might try to use that leverage. Fear spiked through Elena's exhaustion. You think she'd hurt my mother? I think desperate people do desperate things. I'm not taking chances. He finished typing, pocketed the phone. You should call her. Let her know security's coming. Make up a story. Tell her I'm paranoid about her safety because of her treatment. Whatever keeps her calm. Elena made the call, fed her mother the lie about Marco being overly cautious, listened to her mother's protests that security was unnecessary and expensive. The conversation felt surreal, sitting in a mansion talking about bodyguards, while her mother worried about the cost. When she hung up, Marco was watching her. You're good at lying to her, he observed. I've had practice, medical bills, how bad things are, how scared I am. You learn to perform normalcy when the truth would break someone. That's a bleak way to live, says the man who just threatened to kill a 23-year-old kid if he doesn't cooperate. Marco almost smiled. Fair point. They spent the rest of the morning preparing. Marco walked Danny through the wire setup over the phone, made sure he understood the questions to ask, the confirmations to get. Elena listened, taking notes, watching Marco orchestrate another person's confession with the precision of a surgeon. By noon, everything was in place. The meeting was set for tomorrow at a coffee shop downtown. Danny would wear the wire. Marco's people would provide surveillance. Patterson would incriminate himself and hopefully Sophia in the process. What if it doesn't work? Elena asked. What if Patterson suspects something? Then we adjust. Find another way. There's always another way. Marco closed his laptop. You should rest. You've been up since 3. How did you know that? Security cameras in the hallways. I saw you at your window. He said it matter-of-factly, no apology for the invasion. You were thinking about running. I was thinking about a lot of things. But you're still here. I'm still here, Elena confirmed, though she wasn't entirely sure why. Loyalty? Fear? The money? Maybe all three, tangled together into something she couldn't separate. She went upstairs, meaning to rest, but too wired to sleep. Instead, she pulled out the encrypted tablet, started documenting everything. The meeting with Danny, the revelation about Sophia, the plan for tomorrow. Writing it down made it feel more manageable, less like she was drowning in chaos. Her phone rang. Dante. Elena stared at the screen, debating whether to answer. Finally, she picked up. Is it true? Dante's voice was rough, like he'd been shouting or crying. What Marco's saying about Sophia? What did he tell you? That she's been working with Consolidated, that she coordinated the theft, that she used me. The words came out jagged. Tell me it's not true. Tell me he's paranoid and wrong. Elena closed her eyes. I don't know for sure yet, but the evidence looks bad. Evidence? What evidence? Danny identified her, said she was at meetings with Patterson coordinating logistics, making sure the operation stayed hidden. Elena heard Dante's breathing change, knew she was breaking something in him with every word. I'm sorry. Where is she now? I don't know. Have you talked to her? She's not answering her phone, hasn't since last night. Dante's voice cracked. I went to her apartment. Her stuff's gone. Like she moved out in a hurry, and there's money. $50,000 in cash hidden in her closet. I found it when I was looking for clues about where she went. The payment from Consolidated. It had to be. Elena's heart sank. Dante. I believed her. When she said she wasn't involved, I believed her. I defended her to Marco, made him look like the villain for suspecting her, and the whole time. He stopped, and Elena heard the sound of something breaking in the background. The whole time she was using me, getting close to me to destroy Marco, to destroy everything I've built. I'm sorry, Elena said again, knowing it was inadequate. Yeah, me too. Dante hung up. Elena sat holding the phone, feeling the weight of collateral damage. Danny, terrified and trapped. Carlo, betrayed by family. Dante, destroyed by love, weaponized against him. All of them casualties of a game they'd entered without understanding the rules. And her? What was she? The question haunted her through the rest of the day. She tried to read, couldn't focus. Tried to watch something on her laptop, gave up after 10 minutes. Finally, she went back downstairs, found Marco in the office, still working. Can I ask you something? She said from the doorway. Always. How do you live like this, knowing the cost, knowing people get hurt? Marco leaned back in his chair, considered the question. I remind myself that people get hurt regardless of what I do. The world isn't safe or fair. It's brutal and arbitrary. At least in my world, the brutality has purpose, strategy, rules, even if they're not the rules other people follow. That's rationalization. Of course it is. We all rationalize. I just don't pretend I'm not doing it. He gestured to the chair across from him. You want to know if you can live like this? If the cost is worth the benefit? That's what you're really asking. Elena sat. Can I? I don't know. That's your choice to make. But I can tell you this. You're stronger than you think. Smarter than you give yourself credit for. And you have something most people in this business don't have. What's that? Empathy. You feel the cost. You don't just calculate it. Marco's expression softened slightly. That makes you dangerous in a different way. People underestimate someone who cares. They think caring makes you weak, but it doesn't. It makes you unpredictable, hard to manipulate, because you're not doing this for power or money or ego. You're doing it for your mother, for survival. That's pure motivation. That's dangerous. I don't feel dangerous. I feel terrified. Good. Terror keeps you honest. Marco pulled up a new screen, showed her surveillance footage from the coffee shop where tomorrow's meeting would happen. Look at this. Tell me what you see. Elena studied the footage, the layout, exits, sight lines. 2 exits, one front, one through the kitchen, cameras covering both. Tables positioned so you can see the whole room from that corner booth. What else? She looked harder. The barista. He's looking at the camera like he knows it's there, which means he's one of mine. Has been for 2 years. Consolidated chose this location because they think it's neutral ground. But nothing's neutral if you plan far enough ahead. Marco closed the screen. That's the lesson. You don't react to situations, you create them. Control the environment, and you control the outcome. Unless something unexpected happens. There's always something unexpected. But if you've planned well enough, even the unexpected fits within parameters you can manage. He stood, stretched. Come on, let's eat. Mrs. Chen made pasta, and you need food even if you don't want it. Dinner was quiet. They ate in the smaller dining room, rain starting again outside, drumming against windows. Elena pushed food around her plate more than ate it, mind still spinning through everything. "Tell me about your father," Marco said suddenly. Elena looked up, surprised. "Why?" "Because I told you he's in Phoenix. Because you said you don't remember him. But I'm curious what you feel about it now, knowing he's alive, knowing he replaced you." The question was intrusive, personal, exactly the kind of thing Elena had spent years avoiding. But something about the day, the exhaustion, the emotional overload, the strange intimacy of sitting across from someone who'd seen her most desperate moments, made her answer honestly. "I used to fantasize about meeting him, asking him why he left, making him explain how he could just walk away from his kid like she didn't matter." Elena set down her fork. "But the older I got, the more I realized he didn't leave because of me. He left because he couldn't handle my mother, the responsibility, the reality of a life that didn't match whatever fantasy he'd built. And I was just collateral damage, not important enough to stay for. That's a hard thing to accept. It's reality. Like you said, the world isn't fair. People leave, people betray. You deal with it, or you don't." Elena met his eyes. "Why do you care?" "Because understanding your wounds helps me understand your limits, where you'll break, where you'll bend but hold." Marco took a sip of wine. "Also because I'm curious about you, who you are beyond the survival mechanisms. I'm not sure there's anything beyond that. I've been surviving for so long I don't remember what it's like to just live." "Then maybe that's what you learn next. How to live instead of just survive." The words hung between them, weighted with possibility Elena wasn't ready to examine. She changed the subject, asked about the logistics for tomorrow, and they spent the rest of dinner going over details. That night, Elena actually slept. Not well, but better than the night before. When her alarm went off at 7, she felt almost human. The morning moved fast. Marco briefed Danny one more time over the phone, walking him through the questions again. Elena listened, memorizing the script, understanding now how carefully everything had to be orchestrated. At 2 in the afternoon, they piled into Marco's car, him driving, Elena in the passenger seat, 2 security guys Elena hadn't met in the back. They parked 3 blocks from the coffee shop, close enough to respond if needed, but far enough to avoid detection. Marco handed Elena an earbud. "You'll hear everything. Watch my face. If I signal, we move." "What kind of signal?" "You'll know it when you see it." Danny arrived first, ordered coffee with hands that shook so badly he spilled sugar everywhere. The barista, Marco's plant, gave him a subtle nod, confirmation the wire was working. 5 minutes later, Patterson walked in. Mid-40s, expensive suit, the kind of confident swagger that came from thinking you were smarter than everyone else. He ordered, sat down across from Danny, and got straight to business. "You have the data?" Danny's voice came through the earbud, tinny but clear. "Yeah, but we need to talk about payment. You said 50,000. I've only gotten 30. You'll get the rest when the job's done." "The job is done. I gave you everything. Routes, schedules, security protocols. Your people have been using it for months. And we appreciate it, but there's one more thing we need." Elena watched Marco's expression. It didn't change, but she saw his hand tighten on the steering wheel. Patterson continued, "We need you to plant something in one of DeLuca's shipments. Just a small tracker. Nothing dangerous, but it'll help us intercept a big delivery coming next week." "That's not what we agreed." "Consider it a bonus request, worth another 20,000 if you do it right." Patterson leaned back. "Unless you want to walk away now. But if you do, I'll make sure certain people know you've been stealing from them. I don't think DeLuca's the forgiving type." Blackmail on top of theft. Elena glanced at Marco. His jaw was tight, eyes fixed on something in the distance. "What about Sophia?" Danny asked, and Elena's attention snapped back. "She said she'd protect me. Legal protection. That's why I agreed to this in the first place." "Sophia did her job, got us access through Moretti. Now she's moved on to the next project." "Next project?" "DeLuca's got other weak points. Sophia's good at finding them, exploiting them." Patterson smirked. "Between you and me, the Moretti thing was brilliant. Get the girl close to DeLuca's most loyal guy, make him fall for her, use him to build a complete picture of the operation, then burn it all down when you have what you need." Danny's voice wavered. And Dante? What happens to him? Not my problem. Sophia's probably ghosted him now that he served his purpose. Patterson checked his watch. So what's it gonna be? You in for the tracker job or not? Elena heard Danny take a shaky breath. I need to think about it. You've got 24 hours. After that, the offer expires. Patterson stood. And Danny? Don't even think about going to DeLuca. You're already in this deep. Might as well see it through. He walked out. Danny sat frozen at the table, the wire catching his ragged breathing. Marco pulled out his phone, typed something. Seconds later, the barista brought Danny a note. Danny read it, stood slowly, and walked out the back exit where one of Marco's cars was waiting. We got him, Marco said quietly. Patterson just confessed to everything. Conspiracy, theft, blackmail, and he confirmed Sophia's involvement. That's enough. Enough for what? Elena asked. Enough to end this. Marco started the car. Patterson's going to have a very bad day tomorrow. And Sophia, he paused. Sophia's going to wish she'd chosen a different target. They drove back in silence. Elena's mind was racing through implications. Consolidated would lose their operations manager. Their coordinated attack on Marco's business would collapse. Danny would probably get immunity in exchange for testimony. Carlo would have to live with his nephew's betrayal, but at least the kid wouldn't be killed. But Dante would be destroyed. Back at the house, Marco disappeared into his office. Elena found him an hour later on the phone, speaking rapid Italian. When he hung up, his expression was grim. I found Sophia. She's at a hotel near O'Hare, probably planning to leave the country. He pulled up surveillance footage showing Sophia in a hotel lobby, suitcase in hand. I'm going to talk to her, tonight. I need to hear her explain it. Need to understand if any of it was real or if she's just that good at lying. Do you want me to come? No, this one's personal. Marco stood, grabbed his jacket. But I need you to do something for me. Call Dante. Tell him where Sophia is. Let him decide if he wants to confront her or let her go. Why me? Because you'll tell him the truth. I might try to manipulate his choice. You won't. Marco headed for the door. Whatever he decides, it's his choice. That's important. He needs to own it. After Marco left, Elena sat with her phone for 10 minutes before calling Dante. She's at the Marriott near O'Hare, Elena said when he answered. Room 847. Marco's on his way there now. If you want to talk to her, you need to go now. Dante was quiet for a long moment. Did she do it? Everything Marco said? Yes, Patterson confirmed it. She was coordinating the whole thing, using you to get to Marco. And she's running. Looks like it. Another silence. Then, quietly, thank you for telling me. I don't know if I can face her, but I need to know she's really gone. I understand. Elena, one more thing. What? Don't end up like me. Don't let yourself care about someone in this business. It's not worth it. He hung up before she could respond. Elena sat in the empty house, listening to rain against windows, and wondered if it was already too late for Dante's warning. If caring about Marco, or at least caring about what happened to him, was already a mistake she'd made without realizing it. Her phone buzzed. Marco. Stay at the house. Security's been increased. Don't go outside until I get back. What's happening? Sophia brought friends. This might get complicated. Elena's heart hammered. She moved to the office, pulled up security feeds. The cameras showed the perimeter, the driveway, the forest beyond. Everything looked quiet. Normal. But Marco wouldn't warn her if there wasn't real danger. She pulled out the tablet, started documenting everything, needing to do something with the anxiety eating at her. Wrote down the meeting with Patterson, the confession, the plan. All of it, in clinical detail that made it feel less overwhelming. An hour passed, then 2. No word from Marco. Elena paced the office, watching security feeds, jumping at every sound. At midnight, headlights appeared on the driveway. Elena's breath caught, but it was Marco's car pulling up to the entrance. She watched him get out, move quickly to the door. No visible injuries, no signs of violence. She met him in the entryway. What happened? Sophia's gone. She ran when she saw me coming. Had a car waiting, probably watching for tails. Marco stripped off his jacket, and Elena saw blood on his shirt. But her friends weren't as smart. We had a conversation. Brief, but informative. "You're hurt." "It's not my blood." He said it casually, like it didn't matter. "Patterson's in federal custody. Turned himself in an hour ago, probably hoping for protection. Consolidated CEO resigned tonight, effective immediately. Their board's in chaos. And Sophia," he paused. "Sophia's in the wind, but she won't get far. I have people looking." "What about Dante?" "He showed up at the hotel, saw the mess, saw what I did to the men she brought for protection." Marco's expression was unreadable. He looked at me like he didn't recognize me. Then he left without saying a word. Elena felt something crack in her chest. "You lost him." "Maybe. Or maybe he just needs time to process that the man he's been loyal to for 8 years is capable of violence he'd only heard about but never witnessed." Marco moved toward the stairs. "Either way, it's done. The threat's neutralized. Your mother's safe. You're safe. We can move forward." "Move forward to what?" Marco stopped, turned to look at her. "That depends on you. Do you want to keep doing this? Learning this world? Working with me? Or do you want out?" The question hung between them. Elena thought about the last 4 days. The fear, the violence, the constant calculation of risk versus reward. The way her mother was improving because of Marco's money. The way she felt visible for the first time in years, even if that visibility came with danger. "I don't know," she said honestly. "Fair enough? Think about it. Take time. Whatever you decide, the offer stands. Your mother's care continues. The money I've already paid you is yours. No conditions." Marco started up the stairs again. "But Elena, if you stay, understand what you're choosing. This doesn't get easier. It gets more complicated, more dangerous, more morally ambiguous. You've seen the surface. The real work is deeper and darker than tonight." He disappeared up the stairs before she could respond. Elena stood in the entryway of a mansion she'd lived in for 4 days, trying to figure out who she was now versus who she'd been when she walked into Aurelio's a week ago. That Elena, invisible, desperate, drowning, felt like a stranger. This Elena, visible, protected, still scared but functioning anyway, felt both more real and less recognizable. She thought about her mother, whose cancer was responding to treatment she'd never have gotten without Marco. Thought about the salary sitting in her bank account, the eviction notice that was no longer a threat, the utilities that would stay on through winter. She thought about Dante's warning, about Danny's terror, about Sophia's betrayal, about Marco's admission that he wasn't a good man, delivered without shame or apology. She thought about the choice Marco had offered her from the beginning. Freedom. Real freedom, not the illusion of it that came from barely surviving. Freedom to choose instead of just reacting. The question was whether she was strong enough to live with the consequences of her choices. Whether she could exist in Marco's world without losing the parts of herself that made her human. Elena climbed the stairs to her room, lay on the bed that was too soft, in a house that didn't belong to her, wearing borrowed clothes because her own weren't nice enough. Tomorrow she'd decide. Tomorrow she'd tell Marco whether she was staying or going. But tonight, she let herself feel the full weight of everything that had happened. The fear. The relief. The strange, complicated gratitude toward a man who'd saved her mother by pulling her into a life that might destroy her in different ways. Sleep came eventually, heavy and dreamless. When she woke, sunlight was streaming through windows, turning the room gold. Elena lay still, feeling the quiet, and realized something had shifted. The terror that had been her constant companion for years. The fear of eviction, of medical bills, of watching her mother die because they couldn't afford treatment. It was gone. Replaced by different fears, maybe. But those old fears, the ones that had shaped every decision she'd made for the past 3 years, they'd been neutralized. She got up, showered, dressed in her own clothes. Found Marco in the kitchen, drinking coffee and reading something on his tablet. "I'm staying," she said. He looked up, expression carefully neutral. "You're sure?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." Elena poured herself coffee. "On one condition." "Which is?" "You don't lie to me. Ever. Even if you think the truth will hurt, even if it's dangerous. I need to know what I'm part of. I need to be able to make informed choices." Marco considered this. "That's a dangerous condition." Some truths put you at risk just by knowing them. Then I'll accept that risk, but I won't be blind. Not anymore. Fair enough. Marco set down his tablet. Then here's the truth. Sophia got away. She's probably in Canada by now, maybe further. I have people looking, but she's smart. She'll stay hidden until she thinks it's safe. And then? And then she'll try again. Different target, different approach. But she'll try again. That's who she is. What she does. Marco met Elena's eyes, which means this isn't over. It's just paused. And when it restarts, she'll know about you. Know you're a vulnerability she can exploit. The fear should have been overwhelming. Instead, Elena felt something else. Resolve, maybe. Or just exhaustion with being afraid. Then we'll deal with it when it happens. Together. Together, Marco agreed. Over the next weeks, life settled into a new rhythm. Elena moved into a different apartment in the city. Not a mansion, but nicer than anything she'd lived in before. Safe building, good neighborhood, rent paid by Marco, but the lease in her name. Her mother was released from the hospital, moved into a care facility with round-the-clock medical support. The treatments were working. She was getting stronger. Dante came back. Not immediately. He took 3 weeks to process what had happened, but eventually he showed up at Marco's office and said he was ready to work again. The trust was damaged, maybe permanently, but the loyalty remained, built on years of shared history that one betrayal couldn't erase. Danny got immunity, testified against Consolidated. The company collapsed in legal troubles and SEC investigations. Patterson got 15 years. Carlo retired, moved to Florida, probably to get away from the memories of his nephew's betrayal. And Elena learned how to read financial statements for hidden patterns, how to track shipments through customs, how to spot lies in body language, how to exist in Marco's world without losing herself entirely. It wasn't easy. There were nights she woke up panicking, questioning every choice. Days when the weight of what she was part of felt unbearable. But there were also moments of unexpected clarity, of feeling useful, of using skills she didn't know she had. 6 months in, Marco offered her a new deal, higher salary, more responsibility, an actual title, Strategic Operations Consultant. It sounded legitimate enough to put on a resume while being vague enough to hide what she actually did. She accepted. A year after that dinner at Aurelio's, Elena sat in Marco's office, reviewing surveillance footage from a new potential security threat. Her mother was in remission. The medical bills were paid. She had savings, actual savings, not just debt in different forms. "You've gotten good at this," Marco said, watching her work. "I had a good teacher." Elena paused the footage, pointed at a pattern she'd noticed. "This guy. He's been near 3 of your properties in the last week. Different times, different days, but always watching. We should look into him." "Already on it. I noticed him 2 days ago." Marco pulled up a file. "Private investigator. Working for someone, but we don't know who yet." "Sophia? Maybe, or someone new." "There's always someone new." He closed the file. "Doesn't scare you anymore. The constant threat." Elena thought about it. "It scares me. But I've learned to function scared. That's different than being paralyzed by fear." "Yes, it is." Marco stood, moved to the windows overlooking the city. "I've been thinking about something. A partnership. Official. Equal stake in certain operations. You'd have real power, real say in decisions." The offer was massive. A year ago, Elena would have been terrified of that kind of responsibility. Now she felt something else. Curiosity about what she could do with it. "Let me think about it," she said. "Take your time. The offer stands." That night, Elena visited her mother at the care facility. Catherine looked better than she had in years. Color in her face, strength in her movements, hope in her eyes. "You look tired," her mother said, studying Elena's face. "I'm fine, just busy." "Busy doing what exactly? You still haven't told me what this job actually is." Elena smiled. "Consulting, problem-solving, helping people navigate complicated situations." "That's very vague." "It's a very vague job." Catherine was quiet for a moment. "Are you happy? Really happy? Not just surviving, but actually living?" The question stopped Elena. Was she happy? She wasn't sure. but she was alive in ways she hadn't been before, challenged, seen, important to someone beyond just being a burden or a paycheck. I'm getting there, Elena said finally. Ask me again in a year. I will. Her mother squeezed her hand. Just be careful. Whatever you're doing, whatever world you're in now, don't lose yourself in it. Promise me. I promise. Elena left the facility as the sun was setting, painting Chicago in shades of amber and shadow. She walked instead of taking a car, needing the movement, the cold air, the reminder that she was still herself despite everything. Her phone buzzed. Marco. Dinner? I have something to show you. What is it? A surprise. Meet me at the house. Elena changed direction, heading for the train that would take her north. The house felt different now, less like a fortress, more like a second home. Mrs. Chen greeted her warmly, directed her to the office. Marco was there, screens glowing in the darkness, but he wasn't alone. Dante stood beside him, looking at something on the main monitor. What's going on? Elena asked. We found Sophia, Marco said. The name sent a chill through her. Where? Amsterdam. She's been running a similar operation there. Different target, same strategy. Get close to someone with access, exploit them, steal information. Marco pulled up surveillance footage. Sophia walking through a street market, coffee in hand, looking relaxed. But she made a mistake. Used a credit card we'd been monitoring. Left a trail. What are you going to do? Marco and Dante exchanged a glance. Then Marco said, Nothing. We're letting her go. Elena's eyes widened. What? Why? Because making her disappear won't undo what she did, won't fix what she broke, and honestly, Marco's expression was unreadable. I'm tired of revenge, tired of the cycle. She won. She got away. Let her live with that instead of making her a martyr. Dante nodded slowly. Besides, karma has a way of catching up. She'll slip eventually. They always do. Elena looked between them, seeing something she hadn't expected. Growth, maybe. Or just exhaustion with violence. Either way, it felt like progress. So what now? She asked. Now we focus on building instead of destroying, Marco said. I'm expanding into legitimate business. Real estate development. Tech investing. Still keeping the other operations, but scaling them back, making room for something cleaner. Why? Because I'm getting older. Because I'm tired of looking over my shoulder. Because, he glanced at Elena, because someone reminded me that there's a difference between surviving and living, and I'd like to try living for a while. The admission felt massive. Elena sat down, processing this new information. Where do I fit in this new version? She asked. Wherever you want. Partner in the legitimate businesses, consultant on the others, or something else entirely. Your choice. Marco sat across from her. But I'd like you to stay. You've become important to me. More important than I expected. The words hung in the air between them, weighted with meaning neither was ready to fully examine. Dante cleared his throat. I'm going to give you two some privacy, he said, heading for the door. Elena, thanks for everything. You brought some humanity back to this operation when I'd forgotten what that looked like. After he left, Elena and Marco sat in comfortable silence. Outside, snow had started falling, the first of the season. Chicago winter arriving right on schedule. I'll stay, Elena said. On one condition. Another one? You teach me everything, not just the observation and pattern recognition. All of it. How the business actually works, how to run operations, how to make decisions. If I'm going to be your partner, I need to actually be your partner, not just your protege. Marco smiled, genuine and warm. Deal. When do you want to start? Tomorrow. But tonight, Elena stood, moved to the windows. Tonight I just want to stand here and feel like I made it, like I survived something that should have destroyed me, and I came out the other side still recognizing myself in the mirror. Marco joined her at the window, standing close enough that she could feel the warmth of him. You did more than survive. You transformed. That's harder. They stood together, watching snow fall over the forest, and Elena let herself feel the full weight of how far she'd come. From invisible waitress to visible partner, from drowning in poverty to swimming in dangerous waters, but at least swimming. From powerless to powerful, even if that power came with costs, she was still learning to accept. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For seeing me. When everyone else looked through me, you saw me. That saved my life. You saved your own life. I just provided the tools. Marco turned to face her. But you're welcome. And Elena, thank you for staying,
For choosing this life despite knowing what it costs. That means more than you know. The moment stretched between them, intimate and complicated and full of possibilities neither was ready to name. Then Marco stepped back, professional distance restored. Get some rest. Tomorrow we start building something new. Elena left the house as snow continued to fall, coating the world in white. She took the train back to the city, watching her reflection in the window. Same face, different eyes. The eyes of someone who'd seen things, done things, become things she never expected. The woman looking back wasn't the Elena who'd walked into Aurelio's all those months ago. That Elena was gone, replaced by someone stronger, more complicated, more alive, and somehow, impossibly, that felt like victory. Not perfect, not clean, but real. Earned through fear and choice and survival. Elena Vance had been invisible for 26 years. Now she was visible, seen, important, and she'd built that visibility herself, one terrifying choice at a time. That was worth something, maybe worth everything. The train pulled into her stop. Elena stepped out into falling snow and walked toward her apartment, toward her new life, toward whatever came next. Ready for it, scared of it, but no longer paralyzed by either, just moving forward, always forward, into the unknown, with eyes wide open.